Hello and welcome into One on One, New York's longest running sports call-in show, live from Radio Row, Day 3 in Phoenix, Arizona. Andrew Galati here alongside Danny Scott and Sam Davis. We'll be with you for the next 3 hours talking all things the Super Bowl, only 3 days away. Have a lot of fun guests. JR SportsBrief coming on in a little bit, Trey Wingo coming on in a little bit, and many more. But guys, how are you guys doing?
Andrew, it's definitely great to be here. And the fact that the Super Bowl is finally almost here. We've been having this is our final show, our third show. We've been talking a lot about the Super Bowl, but now it's coming and the days are getting closer and closer here as we approach Friday, which is super exciting. We got a lot of Super Bowl content to get into. I think we have a couple of great interviews, like you mentioned, throughout the show, maybe some others popping in a little bit later, but we got a lot of Super Bowl to talk. Yeah. So we got a lot of focus on the big game, and I'm super excited for that.
Yeah, I'm doing really good. This week has really felt like a whirlwind. Like we're not getting any sleep. We're just grinding away all week long. It's been so much fun though, and just excited to be here for day 3. Really looking forward to the game. I feel like we haven't actually talked about the game at all. It's been a lot of fun though.
And there's JR right behind us here, ready to go. And Danny's gonna hand
right over here.
Yeah, sit right there. Perfect.
Yeah, need the headphones for the mic. We're just gonna have you right on here.
I know the headphones might, mess the hair up or something.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, but you could do that. You could do that. You hear us?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, that works. Yeah.
Awesome. So right now we're joined by JR SportsBrief. He hosts a nightly show on CBS Radio weekdays at 10 p.m. Eastern and also a host for WFAN. JR, what are your impressions on this week here so far in Radio Row?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
This is just what it is all the time. I don't know what number Radio Row this is for me, but it's crazy. It's fun. It's like coming to a giant convention. Everybody is here. Darren Waller is sitting right over here next to me on the other side. Tony Dungy is behind me. I just saw Chris Henry. It's fun to come out here all the time.
The stars are definitely out in Phoenix like there, I'm sure, every year at Radio Row, but especially here this year.
One-stop shopping.
Yeah.
Everything you need is right here.
Exactly.
Everything you need is here.
Of course.
Yeah.
I want to start out here in the NBA. Obviously, crazy trade deadline headlined by the Nets trading Kevin Durant to the Suns down here in Phoenix now. So I'm very curious. What are your thoughts on the trade overall, the winners and losers from that deal?
Well, we know this. Come on, we from New York. The Brooklyn Nets are the losers.
Yeah,
they've been losers for a few years.
I thought I would give you the option to say either way. Even
well, we know the Brooklyn Nets are the losers. They got punked around by some players. It's a sad situation, and the winners would be the Phoenix Suns. What happens with their depth is to be seen. The Lakers probably aren't going to move up into contention, but the Lakers were still able to add younger, more athletic pieces. It's teams that added flexibility. It's sad to be a Nets fan. If you are a Nets fan, how many of them? Like 5 of them? 6? Like 5 or 6 of them.
The fall from grace for the Nets. I mean, obviously
fall.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have Harden, you have KD, and you have Kyrie.
They didn't do anything.
I know.
You got to go somewhere.
I guess the fall from expectations.
Yeah,
I should say.
Yeah, exactly. I guess
that's
I think the way of the Nets. I mean, you go back to the Garnett and that big 3. Now this big 3 doesn't work out.
Sometimes you can't rush, quote unquote, the process. Not to borrow a 76ers term.
Yeah.
But and it's crazy. This is two separate owners. You have Mikhail Prokhorov, who went out and tried to get, Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, and you had Brooke Lopez, and you had Darren Williams and Joe Johnson.
Yeah.
And that was Prokhorov. It didn't work. Those guys were washed. And then you get 2 dudes who are in their prime. One is injured, one is all over the damn place, and here we are. Now they got to start over. They got a lot of young guys, a lot of wings. This team is just going to be a work in progress all through the summer over the next year. It's crazy.
And, that Nets team kind of reminds you of when they broke up the other big 3 kind of at the bottom. But I do want to move over to LeBron James and the legacy of him.
Sure.
While we were in Phoenix this week, he did break the scoring title. Where do you feel like his legacy ranks among the all-time greats?
He is one of the all-time greats. It's a fun conversation, and people argue with me or try to argue this with me on air all the time on CBS. Everybody can be great in their own way. Like when people start talking about, I don't even like the word GOAT. Like this started, 10 years, maybe 5-10 years ago.
It's definitely been a recent.
It's new. Who's the GOAT? This is Bleacher Report ESPN first take culture. Like who's the GOAT, the greatest of all time? What are we gonna do if we're lucky enough? No, I don't plan on being alive. But if we can still exist for another 200, 300 years, what are we gonna do? Sit around and go?
Be a million goats.
Yeah, it's like, listen, there's going to be different people who are great in their own respects. You know, LeBron is one of the greatest basketball players of all time. You can start splitting hairs and go, oh, well, would you start a team with him or this guy? Would you do this? He's one of the greatest. His resume and what he's done and what he's still building is ridiculous. There's no dispute there. LeBron James is one of the greatest basketball players of all time. The NBA has been around for 75 plus years right now. And you could easily say he is one of the top 2 or 3. Flat, period. I don't think there's any debate about it with his resume.
The NFL honors were right here in Phoenix last night. I want to get your thoughts on those. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes, the MVP, the Jets sweep for Rookie of the Year.
How about that?
And Daboll, of course, winning Coach of the Year. Just overall impressions from the NFL honors. Do you think those awards kind of are fair, obviously accurate, of who you thought was going to win?
Yeah, well, I like the Jets.
Yeah.
It's hard for the Jets to win anything. Like they won. I wish they'd win more football games, actually win something in the playoffs, but why not?
They had their night last night. They had their They had a brief moment.
I wish they'd have some nights in December and January and maybe February that mattered. You know what would make me happy? If I were here and the Jets were here. Like that is almost a foreign concept to me. It seems impossible. It seemingly makes no sense. But yeah, it was nice to see Sauce Gardner walk away defensive player, Garrett Wilson walk away offensive player of the year for the rookies. Brian Daboll certainly deserving of Coach of the Year. I mean, the expectations that he had and what he was able to flip with it is pretty awesome. Like this was a, hey, what is Saquon going to do year? What is Daniel Jones going to do year? And they both bounced back. They're both going to get paid. They went to the playoffs. They won a round. It's amazing all the way through what Brian Daboll was able to do. It's pretty cool.
So now it seems like New York was obviously one of the big winners of NFL honors last night. What do you feel like those two teams now have to do to be the big winners, as you said, in December, January, and be in this spot, not having the shadow on them on Thursday night, but Sunday?
The New York Giants have to continue to fill out the roster offensively. The New York Jets have to find a quarterback. We will figure out who that'll be over the next several months. Is it going to be Aaron Rodgers? I don't know if Aaron Rodgers is a personality fit for New York, but he'd obviously be the best option if you want to quote unquote just go out there and win now. It could be Jimmy Garoppolo, but are you going to trust that he's healthy throughout the course of a season? So the New York Jets have to find a QB. The New York Giants have to find more of an offense, and that's what needs to take place. They're both in great positions to grow and be competitive, but unless you have a QB just right there smack in the middle, you're shorting yourself on how long you can compete. The window.
Now, talking about the Super Bowl, we have to get into it. And,
sure.
and talking about Patrick Mahomes, obviously winning the MVP, I'm curious, what is the level of concern with his ankle? Obviously, the Eagles have a very strong defensive front 7, front 4, and they put a lot of pressure on the quarterback. Mahomes is really going to have to scramble a decent amount, use those legs. Is there a level of concern with the Chiefs' injuries, starting with him? Obviously, a couple of receivers out as well.
Still, questionable. Still, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's good that he's had a couple of weeks to recuperate and rest. It only takes one hit. His ankle, by the time the game starts, and I'm not him, you're not him, nobody knows how he feels except him. It takes one hit and one tweak to just change the trajectory of the whole game. It doesn't matter if it takes place in the first quarter, the fourth quarter, it might not happen. By the time in the AFC Championship game, he was limping around by the time we got to the fourth. He may not limp at all on Sunday. He may get hit in the first and just go, oh shucks, I mean, I'm stuck with this for the rest of the game. We don't know. You know, a lot of people have made a hubbub, mostly the Niners, about, oh, man, if only we had our quarterback throughout the whole thing. If only this was fair, and this is not fair. And Christian McCaffrey saying, oh, well, they should have adjusted the emergency quarterback rule. Well, listen, man, they played within the rules. Your guy got hurt early. That's part of the strategy. Hit the quarterback. They hit the quarterback, and they altered the game, and you got blown out. I would think any NFL team, the Eagles, the Chiefs, if they could knock if you could knock Hurts or Mahomes out of the game,
yeah,
why not? That's part of, you hit the quarterback.
Football.
Yeah, that's part of the game. Sorry, your guy got hurt. It's over.
Now, looking at the Chiefs, they got back to the Super Bowl without one of their main cogs on offense from prior years, Tyreek Hill. What do you think it says about Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Andy Reid to get right back to the spot without a superstar receiver like Tyreek Hill?
Patrick Mahomes is like the Magic Johnson of football. Like being able to get the ball out at all these ridiculous angles, being able to make the passes, being athletic. I wasn't concerned when Tyreek Hill went down to Miami. He's spreading the ball out, and he has decent, solid receivers. You know, Juju Smith-Schuster is not a bum. You know, Marquez Valdez-Scantling is not a bum. Travis Kelce is one of the greatest tight ends of all time. Like, they have weapons to work with. I mean, Pacheco from Rutgers.
Yep.
They're able to put him out there in the backfield. So they have weapons. As long as he can stand upright and the offensive line is not garbage, they're going to move that ball around, and that's what we've seen.
Shifting to the Eagles with Nick Sirianni, a guy that coming into Philly was absolutely had a lot of noise, and it wasn't the good type of noise heading into Philly. But turning that around to now a finalist for Coach of the Year, and all he's done, obviously leading the Eagles to the Super Bowl. How has he been able to get that done so quickly, and what does it say about him to be able to change that reputation so fast?
You know, you're only as good as the individuals you have to coach. And I forget who said it earlier this week. It was actually Julian Love from the New York Giants who said, he has veteran players. He's along as he just needs to stay out of the way. Part of that might be true. It doesn't mean that Julian Love, he needs to shut up. He got eliminated. Just like relax and mind your business. But you got to give him credit. Somebody needs to structure the staff. Somebody needs to help come up with a strategy. Someone needs to organize this. You have to have the respect of the players in your locker room. So you can't completely throw him out the window. He still has to galvanize them. It's not as simple as, hey, we got great players. They went out there, they performed. Let me just laissez-faire, hands off. You got to give him credit where credit is due. Is it easier to coach a team that has a lot of talent? Oh, yeah. I mean, you can figure that out in third grade. You know, if I run out with third graders and 5 of them are 6 feet tall and, you know, the other ones are as big as this, then we know who has the talent advantage and who's going to win. Anybody could coach that. But at that level, you got to give the coach some type of credit.
And talking about the guy who acquired those players for the Eagles, those world-class players, Howie Roseman, and I know a lot of Giants fans and, you know, specifically Giants fans, but New York fans in general, definitely shaking their head at that. The Eagles were able to really turn around a Super Bowl winning core in 2017 to now get right back to the Super Bowl with a lot of the, you know, brand new players in 2022 and now 2023 Super Bowl. I mean, what can you say about the job that Howie Roseman's done?
It's amazing because it looked for a while there that he should have gotten a boot. I mean, when you're taking guys like Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson, Arcega Whiteside, I think was the dude's, and he's gone.
Yeah.
Here's a difference. He found a quarterback.
Yeah.
He got a quarterback in the second round. He got a dude who had a championship pedigree, but then fell off and then had to transfer and then was selected in the second round, has a chip on his shoulder, has been able to go to a Super Bowl. He has a quarterback. He was able to acquire and draft wide receivers and weapons to get help. You got to give him credit for what they've been able to do so quickly.
We know here at Fordham that you have embarked on a lot of college tours across the country, visiting Fordham as well. What was the idea behind this? When did that plan kind of come about? And what are your largest takeaways from those trips around the country?
Oh man, you're making my brain bounce around to every place that I've
It's a lot of schools, I'm sure.
Yes, it's I think at this point maybe 50 plus schools, colleges, and university all over the country. You know, Fordham, the Bronx is home, so it's easy to do Fordham anytime around a trip. You know, when I started the network job on CBS, it was pretty much, hey, these are the cities I want to go to promote the show. And then the pandemic happened. So there was no, hey, go to Dallas, go to Houston, go to Miami, go to Cleveland. There was none of that. And so when we got out of, quote unquote, the pandemic, I wanted to still go out and promote the show, but everything felt nasty about the world. From a media perspective, a lot of the news that we would see, vitriol back and forth. Everyone was so divided about everything, you know, whether it's social issues for the most part. And I said, you know what, as a part of my tour, I want to tell students about media. And I also want to let them know, hey, don't be a jackass in the process. You know, there's so many good things that you could do as you guys are seeing with a microphone and influence in front of you. And so I connected with Special Olympics and we started the Media for the Movement tour. We've been able to do it for the past 2 years. We're branching out into doing other content. So we're actually going to be adding some legends to the tour into the future for each stop. And then pretty soon, we're going to actually launch a podcast as well between myself, CBS, and Special Olympics, just to highlight some of the amazing stories and amazing athletes I've met along the way. And so for me, it's fun. Sports is cool. Super Bowl is cool. I care about the human experience much more. And so I want more people to have a great human experience, regardless of who they are, where they're from, because I think most of us can relate to, not everything is peaches and cream. And there's some people, things aren't great a lot of the times, and all they need is an opportunity and a chance. So that's why I'm out here doing the tour. That's why I do the work with Special Olympics. That's why I talk about sports. It's fun.
No, that's awesome. And I know that, your career is kind of from the grassroots of how you came up. How do you feel like that affected, your perspective on the industry, the perspective, how you were able to break in and what you're able to give to viewers?
I knew from the get-go that it was all about branding. I didn't go to Fordham or Syracuse. I don't have a formal degree in broadcasting. This is something I learned via just hands-on. I interned at Vibe magazine. My uncle was a DJ. I had a chance to help musicians produce content. I produced content for other people when it was time or suggested to me, hey, why don't you produce content for yourself? I took the same roadmap that I saw from artists, musicians, and people in the entertainment world and said, I want to apply this to something new in sports. And so I feel that I didn't necessarily wait. And you don't have to wait. I mean, at this point in time, the way it's common. It was uncommon for me in 2009 to, reach out to the Yankees, and it's just like, hey, digital media, we don't even have a digital media department. Like, what's that? And so, 2009 versus 2023 is a long time, but you'd be stupid now to not find a team or an organization that embraces digital, which is where I started and built a massive audience. People still, well, that's only YouTube. Well, every entity in this room is now on YouTube.
Yep. Including us. So
yes, correct. So the world changes, technology changes. Look, TikTok is not too far from us here.
We were talking about earlier. It's not radio row anymore. It's like social media row.
It's media row. And things change so fast. TikTok is here on media row. TikTok may not be here in 5 years. It may not be here in 2 years. You just never know. Whereas if we went back 10 years, we'd have MySpace would have a role or a set.
Think
here.
About MySpace set. Yeah.
Everything,
you're right though.
Everything changed. Where's Sears?
Yeah.
And it's every business, and technology makes things move even faster. Where's Sears? Where's Radio Shack? Where's Barnes and Noble? Where's the mall?
Blockbuster.
Come on now.
JR, I just want to get your Super Bowl prediction. Who are you taking in the game?
I'm going to go with the Eagles. I hedge back and forth because it's Patrick Mahomes. He is one of the most talented quarterbacks to have ever played the game. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that, given his accomplishments so early and just watching him and his talent. So they have the offense. Kansas City's defense it's good. It's okay. It's not one of the top defenses. That's never been their strength since he showed up. I mean, you have Chris Jones out there. If he's not wrecking the backfield, it's going to be tough. The Eagles are a more well-rounded team offensively and defensively. You mentioned the defensive line. They have great defensive backs, a former Giant and James Bradbury. They got defenders. I mean, they're picking up Ndamukong Suh off the street.
Yes.
Like they got a line. You got Graham. The offensive weapons. So they have a better chance of controlling the game. But you're not going to count the Chiefs out unless Mahomes is running for his life like we saw a few seasons ago. And that's a possibility. So I would give the Eagles the slight edge. Mahomes picking up the MVP and Hurts maybe having an added chip on his shoulder could be an additional factor there. But it should be a close game, should be fun. I hope sometimes we get these Super Bowls and they're blowouts. Sometimes they're boring as hell,
especially with all this build-up. I mean, you have to hope it's exciting, considering that it's obviously 2 weeks and obviously Radio Row here this week. All the build-ups.
You never know. You never know with the Super Bowl. I just, you hope for a good game. That's it. Hope for a good game all the time.
CBS Sports and WFAN radio host JR SportsBrief. Catch him at 10 p.m. Eastern every weeknight. Thanks for joining us, JR.
Oh, thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Y'all keep up the good work, man.
Come
take my job at CBS. Come get it.
I think we'd be glad to take that, but that's your job.
That's your job. You lock it down.
You do a great job.
Come take it. Y'all can do it now. Y'all take it.
We'll be right back on 101 live from Radio Row.
Book unforgettable travel experiences at getyourguide.com.
Ready?
Santa.
Welcome back to One on One live from Radio Row. I am Danny Scott alongside Mike Calamari, and we have a special guest, AJ Perez, a senior reporter for Front Office Sports. AJ, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, right before you sat down, we started talking about the Brett Favre, Michael Irving allegations. Can you just fill everyone in on what's going on with that?
Yeah, the Brett Favre one's been going on for a couple of years now. He's been attached to $8 million of misspent welfare funds, and these funds go to the poorest of the poor. These are they're called from the federal TANF program, where most high percentage of people who apply for it who are eligible don't even get it. So Favre got $1.1 million for speaking fees. He did not perform. The other two pet projects was a volleyball center at his alma mater where his daughter attended at the University of Southern Mississippi. $5 million to build that, and then another $2 million for a concussion treatment program, which I've been, not a program, sorry, a company, a pharmaceutical company that tried to create two different concussion. One was a cream that prevents concussions, which is, and then the other one was in after a post concussion or some kind of head impact, you inhale something through your nose. Neither of those are coming to market. So this all came from these TANF funds, and Favre is being sued by the state welfare department, and he's also he's not, but he hasn't been criminally charged.
And you talk about all these situations. What's the process you go through when you're writing a story on them, and how does that work?
Yeah, usually it's first thing is finding the lawsuit. Favre's lawyers leaked it. I wouldn't say leaked it. Gave it to the Daily Mail. I'm pretty sure that's how they got it. So you always want to get it first. But the hard part is you don't know where these are filed, and these are filed in two different Mississippi counties, which I have access to. But unless I have to go, I have a heads up to look for it. So it's finding the complaints, reaching out to the people. I reached out to Pat McAfee's people right afterward, because he sued McAfee, and he sued Shannon Sharp, and the third lawsuit was against the state auditor's office, who I've interviewed several times, Shad White, who was basically his department. Him and his investigators kind of uncovered all this Favre connection.
And so, on top of all this stuff, we still have the Dan Snyder situation going on. And you reported he's holding out for a $7 billion offer. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, he's. I think anybody would to get the most money they can for the franchise. There are some concerns by a couple of my sources that he set a high number so he could pull out eventually and just not sell the team. That's a good theory. I don't have any indication that's going to happen, because if it does, it'll restart the process for removal most likely. The other X factor is the NFL has a second investigation that's still ongoing into the team, and we don't know when that's going to wrap up.
Do you think that he'll end up selling the team if you had to guess?
Yeah, I think it's more likely than not. I just think there's indications he's moved to almost semi-permanently to London. He sold his former house, not the one he lives in the DC area, but he put that on the market on Monday. So there's our indications that he's and him not attending the last couple of games, even, which he's never missed really games, even while all this stuff was going down with the investigations and the scandals he's faced. He was always at the games, usually in his box. But the last two games, there were the reporters I talked to, and I couldn't see him in the box when I was at the game, the final game of the season. So that's why I think it's more likely than not he's going to sell.
So we are at the Super Bowl. There's two very good teams in here. You got the Eagles and Chiefs. What separates them? Is it their ownership that like compared to the dysfunctional groups like the Commanders and stuff like that? What do they do specifically that makes them?
Yeah, I mean, I covered the last Super Bowl the Eagles were in. That came out of nowhere. I mean, obviously with Nick Foles, and no one saw Nick Foles 5 years ago beating Tom Brady and outplaying him. So yeah, they have been consistently, at least every few years, challenging for a Super Bowl under Jeffrey Lurie. And obviously the Hunt family owning, the Chiefs since they began. You have two, owners that are, strong but not meddling. I think we've seen less and less of that, but Dan Snyder being one of them, Jerry Jones. There's some owners that take more of a lead role when it comes to player personnel. But yeah, these two owners let their coaches, let their GMs handle those things.
We're in Phoenix at the Super Bowl. There's another big tournament going on right now, Waste Management for the PGA Tour. I know you spent some close attention on the Live Golf antitrust lawsuit. Just, walk us through that situation and what were the intricacies of that?
Oh yeah. So that last summer, the Live, it was actually the players first. It was Mickelson, a bunch of other players were the named plaintiffs against, they filed an antitrust lawsuit in August against the PGA Tour. Initially, they were seeking a temporary restraining order for the final major of the year last year to get into it. The Players Championship. That's semi-major, not really. But and the judge denied that. So now basically Liv is taking over as a lead plaintiff now, and they're going back and forth. There's a trial date set for next January, it's coming January 2024. The PGA Tour wants to push that back because they said they have not gotten the discovery, the subpoena, the information they've subpoenaed from Live Golf, which is mostly because a lot of the information they want is in Saudi Arabia, since that's the major financial backer of Live Golf, and it's 90%, at least 90% funded by the Saudi sovereign fund. So, yeah.
So before we let you go, we've been asking everyone, what are your thoughts on the Super Bowl, and you got a prediction?
Yeah, I think I think the Eagles. I just because of the defense, I think the Eagles have the edge. I could see them going up 7 to 10 points at half, and let's see how Mahomes' ankle. That's like the X factor too. It's like what's going to happen with him. With the how healthy he's going to be. He looked pretty decent. He didn't look 100% obviously in the title game. But if he's somewhat healthy, it's going to be a pretty. I think it'll be a very close game at the end. If Mahomes, if there's a chance I see the Eagles running away with it, but I think the Eagles will win by a little closer. 3 to 5 points.
Gotcha. Well, AJ, thank you so much for joining us. For Mike Calamari, I'm Danny Scott. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to One on One. We keep the guests rolling here on this live edition from Radio Row with almost Andy Reid, the doppelganger, as they call you. How you doing?
Doing good. You said we keep the guests rolling. I take that a little personally there.
Oh no, you,
No,
you
no.
are you're the number. I mean, you're coaching in the Super Bowl in a couple days. Like
Oh,
you are the guy. Like
that's
you're
right.
at the top of the list for any guest. we've
That's
had.
right. You know, I've got my sign already. We'll coach for tickets. I'm going to stand outside of the Super Bowl before the game. I'll
So-
confuse everybody.
And I'm sure you've confused people today. So just to clarify, it's not actually Andy
Yeah.
Reid.
It's almost.
When we walked in, we thought it, but it's almost Andy
That's
Reid.
right,
Follow
baby.
him on Instagram. So first off, how many people today have mistaken you actually for Andy Reid?
Oh, probably 90%.
90%.
That's
Wow.
a large
Easily, yeah.
number.
So
Easily.
we saw you at first, and we thought, okay, there's no way that actually Andy Reid would be here a couple days
2
before
days
the
before
Super
the
Bowl at Radio Row. But I'm curious. So when did this start? Just take me through like how this began and
Well-
what it's become.
So in the womb, there was a mold of this guy with orange hair and a big mustache. And God said, I'm not done with that mold. And he stuck me in it. And here I am today. And but no, it started out as a Halloween costume. I'm cheap. So my wife got some tickets to a Halloween ball, and I said, well, I'm a Chiefs fan, so I'm just going to go as a Chiefs fan. So I had a beard. I shaved my beard off, left the mustache just for fun. I looked in the mirror and I said, who's that good looking guy? And so I said, that looks a little bit like Andy Reid. That's how it all started.
I have so many questions, but pre Chiefs Andy Reid, was there, obviously he's on the Eagles. There was nothing then. It started when he was already on the Chiefs.
No, he's got his own following there and his own fake Andy Reid there in Philadelphia. Chris Wilhelm. Oh, he's a great.
So there's
great
another Philly.
He is.
fake
He's
Andy
like
Reid?
the younger Andy
Wow.
Reid, and I'm the
Wow.
more matured Andy Reid.
And
yeah.
have you done anything to alter your appearance after? Okay, I got some traction here. I can make things happen to keep it rolling. Keep
Well,
that
you must
momentum
have
and look
gotten
like Andy Reid.
you must have gotten a hat, or did you have all the supply? Like, are you
I shaved my head.
so are you from Kansas City? Are you
Yeah,
and you've been a Chiefs fan?
a
your
lifelong
whole life?
Chiefs fan.
Got it.
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely. So to be able to take it to a new level
Yeah.
was just absolutely exciting for me, because even as a kid, you can't find pictures with me without a Chiefs shirt on or something.
I mean, Ryan,
Yeah.
with the headset, it looks
Yeah.
even better.
And
Like,
it's
it looks
unreal.
like you're getting plays
That's
from
right, baby.
from the press box. As
I
you
gotta-
speak.
Have you met Andy Reid, the real Andy Reid?
I have not met Andy Reid
Wow.
yet.
We got to. I mean, we're not the people to set that up.
Yeah,
let's
we need
clarify, but
somebody to set
That's
that
got
up.
to.
That's
That's gotta
right.
get going.
Yeah.
Of course, I do have the game plan here.
Oh,
Oh
is this
my
the Super Bowl
goodness.
game plan?
That's right, baby.
So how do
You
you
got the
see
play
that?
sheet.
So
How do
this is
you
what I'm going to look like on the sidelines, everybody.
Has there
Oh my
ever been a
goodness.
time where someone mistakes you for Andy Reid and do you correct them always? I'm almost Andy Reid.
I correct them about 99% of the time. When they're so drunk at the game, they're like, Coach, what are you doing here? Oh, I just tell them I'm out for a cheeseburger, taking a break. The enemy's got it. Or if somebody comes up and shares me a personal growth story, and they were inspired because of Andy Reid, sometimes I'll just go with that because how do you break into that and without disappointing them or something? So, but most of the time, 99% of the time. Yep.
Now, how often do you take on this character of Andy Reid? Like, how are you doing this once a week? Are you doing it for big events like this? Or how often are you doing
Well,
this?
during the season, I do it every day.
Every day?
Every day. I'm at Arrowhead Stadium doing videos on TikTok,
Wow.
doing videos because I'm very highly requested on Cameo. the app Cameo.
Yes.
And so I do a lot of videos. This week I've been doing videos for Philadelphia fans to prank some friends of theirs and things. So I do a lot of fun. Probably last year I did probably 3,000 videos.
That is unbelievable. Yeah. Last question here before we let you go. I think I know what you're going to say, but I have to ask, what's your Super Bowl prediction?
Well, I don't like to predict of course, we get all three phases of the game. They're a well-coached team. I look forward to the challenge, yada, yada, yada. You all know what I'm going to say because I say the same thing every single time. But no, best team's going to win. If we execute the game plan, I think that I feel pretty good about us.
Okay, so bit of a surprise, but almost Andy Reid. It looks like he's leaning Chiefs in this one.
I'm leaning towards a celebratory double cheeseburger. That's what I'm leaning towards.
Always Andy Reid, thank you so much for the time. We'll be right back with more one-on-one.
All right.
Welcome back to One on One, New York's longest running sports call-in show, live from Radio Row. Andrew Galata, Danny Scott here with Giants cornerback Adoree Jackson. Adoree, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How y'all doing?
Doing great. First question, just wanted to ask down here in Arizona, what's kind of your impression about Radio Row? Obviously, the whole NFL seems to be down here right now.
Nah, I mess with it, man. I appreciate, this opportunity to be able to talk to guys like yourself and other people and be able to connect and just build those relationships, man, and just have fun and be in a moment. Like, I know sometimes it's hectic, during the season, you don't really want to talk to nobody, but this is like a different breath of fresh air to be able to relax, be yourself, and not really have any worries.
So you guys had a fantastic season this year, getting back into the playoffs. Can you just talk about what that culture was like, what you guys are building?
Yeah, man, that culture started in OTAs, man, having this crazy ping pong tournament, just battling, having power rankings, moving up, during different pods. I think that competition factor helped us bonding and getting to going in the season. And I think that showed throughout the year, starting 7-2, then having that slump, but still managing to make it to the playoffs. So I think it all started from OTAs, bonding with each other, doing team competitions, compete individually against other people. That goes a long way.
Adoree, the NFL honors was last night, and your head coach, Brian Daboll, took home Coach of the Year. What can you say about Brian Daboll and the job he's done?
Man, he's a good dude. Obviously, a great coach. That's why he won that award, but a very great person that a lot of people may not understand and know. What you guys see, from the outside is really how he is on the inside. When he's with us in the locker room or whatever it may be around the facility, man, just a great person, a genuine guy, and has a lot of passion for the game and the people that he coaches.
So I know the New York media can be very tough. How have you handled that being a New York Giant? Because I was the Jets beat reporter this year, so I was in the Jets locker room a lot and
going crazy.
People just hammering questions to guys. How have you learned to deal with that?
I think USC helped me out greatly with being able to handle the media and just have a tough skin and just understanding that a lot of people have opinions. And at the end of the day, you guys really just doing your job. We do ours, you guys do yours. And, if you can be respectable and you can do it the right way, it should all go copacetic and be cordial. But, it's times where, you may not read the room, not understand that it might not be the time to ask this question or vice versa or whatever it may be. So it's just one of those things, just take it with a grain of salt. But I think USC did a great job of preparing me for that.
Dory, I want to go back to the playoff game wildcard round
Mm-hmm.
against the Vikings. Obviously, you guys came out with a huge win, 31-24. Can you just take me through the locker room after the game, kind of how excited you guys were to get a playoff win? It was the first playoff win for the Giants since their Super Bowl run in 2011. So just how important was that win?
Man, it was a huge part of – it was a testament to our season, really. The game was a battle. We've been in a lot of games that are battles, and it always came down to the wire. And always fought to the end and kept fighting. And that just goes to show, when you believe in yourself, the coaches believe in you, great things can happen. And that just got the momentum rolling for us. And even for the next season to come, to understand, we've done some good things, but good is not good enough. Now we want to be great and do better things than we did last year.
You talk about being better next year. What do you guys got to do to take that next step, get back to a Super Bowl, stuff like that?
Just refresh, man. Get your minds right, get your bodies right. Understand that it's going to be a long season. Appreciate it. Live in the moment. And don't dwell too much about the past or the future. I understand that if you just live in the present, that can go a long way. And you just attack the day.
Dory, before we let you go, obviously down here in Arizona, the game's in a few days. Do you have a pick for it? Chiefs, Eagles?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Eagles. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, they beat us 3 times, so I wouldn't want to go against them. Obviously, and they beat everybody in a good fashion. So I want to see them, and AJ Brown's over there, former teammate of mine. Want to see him be successful. I really just want to see a good game at the end of the day. But for a pick, I'll go with the Eagles.
Giants cornerback Dory Jackson. Thanks you for joining us, Dory.
Appreciate it.
We'll be right back on One-on-One, New York's longest running sports college show.
Welcome back here to One-on-One. Joined now by Fordham alum, also used to work in the public relations for the New York Knicks, Joe Favorito. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, that's the way you kind of shortened everything that I've done, that's good. I like it that way.
Well,
it's been
I have to say, 10 years I've been on Radio Row. Every year, the Fordham guys would come and say, "We want to have you on." This is the first time in 10 years. So
you're making
First
history
time
on
in 10
Radio
years.
Row.
Wow.
10 years of Radio Row, but the first time we're able to have you on.
Yeah.
And we talked about so many things we can talk about, but first, just give me your impressions of Radio Row. You've been here for 10 years. What makes this one different, and what makes it similar to past ones?
it's not really that different. It's kind of rinse and repeat. I think the beautiful thing is that people are actually back in person. LA was a little bit tough last year. Obviously, there wasn't one the year before. It was virtual the year before. Then there wasn't one the year before that. So it's great to see people. It doesn't really change. I said to you guys before, I mean, Lee Steinberg, I think, sleeps here. And the fact that, Jewish lawyer from California is now doing all the Christian stations shows it's the Friday of Super Bowl week. So got
Mike,
them all out of the way.
Mike mentioned your time with the Knicks in PR. I'm very curious what that experience was like, how things changed, and how the landscape in media changed over the course of those years.
So 6 seasons with the Knicks, 3 seasons with the 76ers. And you guys have heard me say this in class, but it's the ability to tell stories never changes. The ability to listen is really important. The ability to know what media, whatever that media is extremely important. What's changed is now you could storytell around the world doing something like this versus, the 6 blocks that you're involved with, or whoever happened to be reading a newspaper or listening to a television show then. Anybody who's got a phone is media. The question is, how do you take that and use that to the best of your ability to tell your story to a massive audience through a megaphone that you can't do on your own? That's the one thing when I talk to athletes is that people talk about, we're our own media company. We can tell our own story. Well, you can't reach everyone. The goal is to take your message and make sure that you're reaching all the audiences that you want to reach. And then the people who you can't reach directly, figure out how other people can help you reach those people through the messages that they're using and the platforms that they have.
You also spent some time director of public relations for United States Tennis Association. How was that experience different from your time in basketball?
Individual sports. So 3 years at the USTA, 2 years at the WTA. Really interesting time when I was there was really when tennis was coming back. We opened Arthur Ashe Stadium, launched a television show, first night final. And really the goal when I was at the USTA was to take a 2-week event, tennis event, and make it a global event, and using the brands to kind of elevate what we wanted them to do. And it was really successful, and it's continued to be successful. So when I was there, CBS was broadcasting, and it is the only event that if you're a brand, CBS, Sean McManus would always say this, the only event that they could count on being in New York the same 2 weeks and planned every year was the US Open. They didn't care whether any tennis was played, as long as you could bring people to the Open and treat them and give them an amazing experience. And that's what the USDA was. And the WTA, the same thing. I think that, again, you're dealing with athletes all the time, whether it's an individual athlete, much different than being in a team setting. But at the end of the day, the best personalities and the ones who can perform in whatever sport they are the ones that kind of rise to the top. You have to have both sides.
So Mike introduced you as Joe, but we should really be calling you Professor, because both of you obviously.
I told you call me Schmuck, whatever you want to call me.
Both of us obviously have had you, him last year and myself this year. So I'm curious.
Up, by the way.
Getting, of course, I'm all about, I got a grade coming up at the end of this. I got to graduate.
By the way, he has not submitted his homework yet for Monday night because I looked before.
Oh my God!
From last week?
No, this week.
Okay, you got me worried. Joe, I've been a little busy.
I was a little worried.
I've been a little busy, but obviously my question is, getting into teaching, what's that been like for you, especially going back to your alma mater at Fordham?
Yeah, so I taught and I still teach 14 years in a row at Columbia. I was there when we founded the sports management program, graduate school, only program in the Ivy League, and I love it. I've taught, and I honestly, I'm not really the teacher. I'm kind of the facilitator. You guys teach us, and we learn from people who are younger about trends and how you engage and what's important. That's the most beautiful thing about it. So I've done 14 years at Columbia. It's my second year back at Fordham. I did a high school class, which was amazing. 5 years at school, New York Times, 3 years at Columbia. And watching people grow and seeing where they go is really the most fascinating thing. I love that. That's the most important thing to me is, I've been in this business over 35 years. Came from where you guys came from, amazing stories when I was at WFUV, and the people who were there, who I'm continue to be friends with today, and all that learning experience, people kind of stick to you over the years. And you guys have heard me say this in class. This is a relationship business, and it's about the people who you meet and the people who you can help along the way. Most important thing by far.
And what I find interesting is both my parents are teachers, and I've seen them have to adjust as technology has advanced. But for you specifically, teaching sports communications, what you teach also has probably changed over the years in terms of media. Do you feel like that's the case? And if so, how's that been an adjustment?
I think it's changed because there's more platforms that you have to know about, and the people who don't succeed on the media side are the ones who just want to do one thing. And you guys, if you don't know how to use the device in your hand and use spoken word, short form video, long form video, be able to write long form, use Twitter in the right way. Now use YouTube Shorts in the most appropriate way. You're not going to succeed because anyone who wants to be in any kind of media business, whether you're doing stuff on your own, whether you're working for another company, you have to be able to sing and dance, do all those things right now. I think that's what's probably changed the most. But, that's not like when I was in school, this thing called sports radio launched and you had to figure out how that worked. It's always been every medium that comes along is a problem. Everything that you do, radio is going to kill print. Print is going to kill this. Cable television is going to kill broadcast television. No, you have to figure out how to put them all together. I mean, we're sitting here looking at, the TikTok display that they've set up. Amazing the things you can do with short form video now. You have to be able how to synthesize that in and make sure that it all flows for you when you're trying to tell a story.
We talked about that actually earlier with another guest we had on about how it's no longer Radio Row. It's now Media Row. And it's
funny that they haven't changed the name. That's very true.
Yeah, because obviously everyone and every single table is obviously much different than it used to be. But Joe, thoughts about the game, being here. I know you watch a lot of sports.
The football game.
Yes, of course. We have to talk about the big game. Just thoughts on
that's not Fordham versus Davidson.
Right. That's where my focus is, unfortunately.
Of course. Of course. Funny, that's our focus too.
I do some work for the Jets, and my wife and I have a tradition. So as soon as the Jets are eliminated from playoff contention, we buy tickets to a Broadway matinee on Super Bowl Sundays. This year we're going to see Neil Diamond.
You've done that. You've done
that
every
10 years in a row.
Yes.
10 years in a row.
10 years.
So,
wow.
So
I've seen
time to go to
a lot of amazing plays. On Super Bowl
I guess
Sunday.
that's one positive.
You go to the matinee and you're home way before kickoff anyway.
Yeah.
So this was actually a little bit late. It was actually like the middle of November. Usually it's like Halloween. I'm able to buy tickets. So that was incredibly encouraging. And by the way, shout out to the Jets. What an amazing night last night. And how valuable that is to a franchise. For a young person, if I'm a young guy or a young woman, on the ticket sales side of the Jets, today is my day because I'm going out and I'm selling the past and the future together. Don Nelson, who was a coach of Golden State Warriors, had a great saying: "When you're not good, you sell hope and hype." And those are the two things that the Jets are selling right now. Trying to link the past to the future. And there's lots of hope and optimism. And when you get emotionally involved, so many people were emotionally involved with the Jets this year was tremendously important. But this Sunday, I worked in Philly for a while. My son went to Drexel. I have a lot of friends in Philly. It's kind of like our second home. I think it would be better for the NFL if the Eagles won from a brand. But hats off to the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, I was telling somebody the other day, the Jets have only won 4 home playoff games in their history, and I've been to 3 of them. And when you think about all the games that Patrick Mahomes has played just in the playoffs in the last 3 years, it's a big upside to it.
So is Chiefs your pick? Is that your official pick?
Eagles.
Eagles is your pick. So, and you mentioned how when the Jets get eliminated, you make that purchase for Broadway play. If the Jets,
I would spend whatever money.
You're going to that game.
It would be interesting. We were talking about it because the face value of the ticket's about $3,200. I can't even imagine what the secondary marketplace would be if the Jets ever made it to the Super Bowl, and they will at some point.
I think even this year, I think secondary market, it's like I was looking, it was like $5,000-$6,000.
Yeah.
And if you had to say,
it used to be a car payment, now it's a car.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy.
That is crazy.
Next 50 years, do we ever see a Jets Giants Super Bowl? And if so, how even is that like?
It's got to be possible in that long.
I think it's anytime New York gets involved in anything, it's a different level of excitement. I mean, you saw the Giants making the playoffs this year and how suddenly it became hyped. And, to be perfectly honest, I mean, not to double back on Fordham, but you guys have seen firsthand what happens when men's basketball is good and how you can own a city because of the people who came, especially from FUV, who were in unbelievable places of influence. And I think the only comparison I would give you is when Northwestern made their run under Chris Collins a couple of years ago. And because the Northwestern alumni liked it and they hadn't won for so long, it was the biggest thing in media. And who knows where men's basketball is going to go this year. And by the way, shout out to the women's team as well.
Yes.
But it's really kind of amazing to see it. And I went to the Davidson game and there were people there who had not been to a game in 30 years.
Yeah, I think that game got a lot of alumni, winter break.
And that was also an unfortunate game based off the fact that
I think coming back for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And and it's funny, the miracle of building the campus center and the restrictions on the amount of seats that are in the gym has actually worked in their favor for this year. So but the student section, there's never, ever, ever been a student section like this year ever. Has never, ever happened. And I think the reason is because both when I was in school and when I worked at Fordham, it was expected that teams would win. You'd win 18, 19, 20 games a year. You go to the NIT, Lionel Simmons is in your way. You don't have an automatic bid, but people just expected it. This is something, you look at that student section, and nobody sitting in that student section was born the last time that Fordham was good in basketball. Really good, consistent.
That's crazy.
So,
that is crazy to think about.
yeah.
And I mean, just as students as well, I think the new culture of Kyle Neptune 1 year, but you bring in Keith Urgo, and he's really been able to.
So I
continue
saw the
that.
rumor
It's really
about maybe
amazing.
Keith Urgo go to Georgetown and Patrick Ewing gets fired.
That's
the
I've
Feinstein article.
heard that rumor, but
That's the Feinstein article. That's why it was important to be in the Washington Post. Just kidding.
I heard that rumor as well,
Yeah.
but from personally, obviously, meeting with him a lot through WFUV, his devotion
I would be
to
shocked.
the future of the program is something that
I
to
also
me
think
seems 100% absolutely genuine, and he loves Fordham.
And
He's
he's
a Fordham
talked about,
guy.
uprooting his, family when he left Penn State to come
Yeah.
here. I don't think that'd be a big
Yeah.
move.
But
Yeah.
obviously, you never know what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, you never
But
know.
but I would say the interesting thing that he has different from most, no disrespect to any of the other coaches, is because of his dad and having been around and knowing a little bit about the culture of what the university has always been around, that plays in his favor because the learning curve was not as long, and he was able to kind of watch what Coach Neptune did last year. But it comes down to, you win the games that you play, and that's absolutely what they did. They play hard, man. Their defense, the best Fordham teams that I saw in the 80s, they play as hard as those guys. And not to take anything away from other teams, but that's what's going to make the difference down the stretch.
So before we let you go, I want to ask you a pair of questions. One, give me your best Fordham team of all time.
Easy.
And
Fordham basketball.
you said you came in with a starting five. What's that starting five?
In my opinion, the best overall team, the most talented team, was the last year of the MAC. So that was Damon Lopez, Danny O'Sullivan, Andre McClendon, Fred Herzog, Sanford Jenkins. So that was a team that could never get past Lionel Simmons. And it's funny, in the 80s, there were two guys you could not get past. You couldn't get past Steve Burden Iona, and you couldn't get past Lionel Simmons. And there was Lionel Simmons always played well at Rose Hill. And there was a reporter that asked him once, he said, because if I play well in New York, I'm going to make money. And lo and behold, he became a number one draft pick from the Sacramento Kings, had a great NBA career. So that team, I think, was the best team. I think I never saw the 70-71 team play, but, they were only together once. Yet had two NBA draft picks in Charlie Elverton and Kenny Charles. I think the 80, my freshman year, which was 81, 82, which was Dude Tungal, Eddie Bona, David Maxwell, was probably the second best team, I think. And this team, from a defensive standpoint, this team is pretty special. And that he's gotten them, I think that one of the biggest things when you watch coaches, and I've been around a lot of coaches, Larry Brown, Isaiah Thomas, Jeff Van Gundy, Stan Van Gundy, Pat Kennedy, Tom Penders, Nick McCarchick. I think that the thing that you watch from coaches, and I have a lot of friends who are coaches, the adjustment that he makes to start the second half, that's amazing coaching. Amazing coaching, that they come out and they adjust and they change in the second half and they don't panic. And he keeps them focused and he keeps them motivated and they're excited to be there, which is great. So I don't know. My all-time, from the guys that I saw, Brian Dunston by far, Damon Lopez by far, John Prelo by far, Tony McIntosh and Jerry Hobby, amazing players without a three-point line and without a shot clock.
Gaston doesn't make your
hard to say. I think close, but those guys, like I never saw Kenny Charles play, so I couldn't say, people talk about those guys. And I was on the Hall of Fame committee for a long time, and it was funny. With the 7 blocks of granite, there were always other guys that other people would find. We used to call them the chips because they'd find another piece of the 7 blocks, and we had to put in the Hall of Fame. That's finally ended. I think it's great that they're honoring Digger. Shout out to Eddie Cole for doing that. I think Nick McCarchick should also be in the Hall of Fame. That has to happen because no one took a bullet for this university on the basketball side like Nick did and was handed a raw deal and had the university, the basketball program going in the right direction. So I love it. It's funny. I texted Eddie after the Richmond game and I'm like, I hate the fact that I'm emotionally involved in this again. I hope more and more people come out. I think they're going to.
I don't even know if it's possible for more people to come out to these games.
They'll find a way. By the way, I also am really interested to see what happens in Brooklyn and how many people buy tickets.
Yes, I think that's.
So I'll leave you guys with one thing, and I texted Eddie about this. So the last time Fordham was really good, which was the beginning of the end of the MAC, into the Patriot League, then into the Atlantic 10. There was a thing that we used every time the students would go on the road, and it was the Bronx is in the house. And I told Eddie I would love to bring back the Bronx is in the house when the team goes to Brooklyn, because that could be a really powerful thing. So anybody who's entrepreneurial and wants to go start making shirts that says the Bronx is in the house, start selling.
We know some people. I think we maybe.
I'm telling you, the chant that went on when we played was the MAC tournament in Albany, and ironically, it really started the day Hank Gathers died, because we had 3 guys from Philly and we were playing. LaSalle was playing in the other semifinal, and the Bronx is in the house started that day, and it went on and on for years. And it stopped obviously when people stopped coming to games. But the Bronx is definitely back in the house again, which is kind of cool.
We'll have to see. We'll keep
and enjoy it.
that
I
as we
tell
head
you
to
what,
March.
And I've told some of your guys, while you're sitting there watching this going on, take a mental picture of what's going on, because these moments don't come along all the time. And it's really super special that you guys are sitting there actually watching this happen. Because I frankly cannot believe it's actually happening. And I just hope it ends the way we all want it to end.
And to hear that from a Fordham WFV alum,
I get chills.
It's huge here.
I get chills.
I do too, to be honest, to think about, taking that mental picture for sure.
Because, and you guys have no perspective. It's almost impossible that this is actually happened.
It really is crazy, and I'm excited to see where this Fordham team. Hopefully, it's a double bye when we get to March. We'll have to see. But Joe, thank you so much for joining us. Cool. Really appreciate the time.
Thanks, guys.
We'll be right back on one-on-one.
Sam Day. Davis and Danny Scott here with Trey Wingo, ESPN on-air personality, the winner of 6 Mid-America Regional Emmy Awards, and currently the chief NFL analyst at Pro Football Network. Trey, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me. Also here on behalf of Caesar Sportsbook, the chief trends officer and brand ambassador there. Also do some work for the 33rd team. You mentioned Pro Football Network and the podcast Half Forgotten History. Check it out wherever you get your podcasts or on my YouTube page, Trey Wingo Presents. All the plugs are now over. Let's proceed.
Love it. Love it. No problem with the plugs. You can plug as much as you want. No problem with that. But overall, Radio Row being here in Phoenix, how has the day been? How's the week been being here for the Super Bowl?
Can Sunday happen already?
Yeah.
I feel like I've been here for a month.
The players feel like that, and we feel like, I think everybody feels like
let's
that.
get on an expedite. Let's do that time jump, quantum leap. Let's get there. I'm excited.
So a lot of storylines going into the Super Bowl. You got the Kelsey brothers, Andy Reid, obviously Mahomes and Jalen Hurts, the first 2 black quarterbacks to ever match up in a Super Bowl. Which of these storylines is the most interesting to you?
None of those, actually. I mean, I want to be clear. Like, I understand the history of the 2 first black quarterbacks squaring off against each other, but I think it's a real sign of progress that isn't the top thing that everybody's talking about. The way I say that is, I don't think it's a big deal anymore. You know, I mean, and that's a good thing. I mean, if you want to celebrate that acknowledgement, I think that's fine. That's wonderful. But the fact that that's not the first thing out of everybody's mouth, to me, is an indication of, well, of course, you know, like, of course that happening. Why shouldn't it happen? So to me, the biggest thing about this game is that it's the rarest of Super Bowls where we have the 2 best teams, right? From week 1 to week 18. You know, you go back to the last few Super Bowl champs. Last year, the Rams went through a 3-game losing streak when Robert Woods tore his ACL, and they got hot late and got through. The year before, the Bucs were 7-5 through 12 games in the COVID season, and that didn't lose after that. The year before that, the Chiefs were 7-4 after a loss in Tennessee, didn't lose after that. From week 1 to week 18 in the regular season, these have been the most consistent, dominant teams all season long. And Buffalo's. Well, if we'd had that playing, maybe we'd be 14-3. You didn't beat the Bengals at your place in the snow. I don't think you were winning in Cincinnati on Monday night. I'm sorry. Okay. So that's what I like about this. The regular season excellence is being rewarded for these 2 teams being on Super Bowl Sunday.
What is talking about the Chiefs in particular, what's the level of concern with their injuries on the offensive side of the ball? You have Mahomes obviously a little bit banged up, although obviously he's going to play. And then you have those receivers questionable with Juju and Tony. I'm curious, for you personally, what do you think is the level of concern with the Chiefs and those offensive starters?
Not a lot, to be perfectly honest. I mean, Mahomes threw for 326 yards and 2 touchdowns and ran for a first down. He needed to win the game on one frickin' leg. That was after 1 week. He's got 2 weeks. He'll be fine. The Chiefs receivers are all full participants in practice. I think they're going to be okay. Yeah. The biggest storyline injury-wise is Jalen Hurts. That shoulder has not been right since he hurt it against Chicago. He missed those 2 games, and the only reason he came back for week 18 is they needed a win to secure the bye and home field advantage and the number 1 seed. He didn't have to do much in the game against the Giants, had to do less in the game against the 49ers. They just threw up all over themselves. I mean, they didn't challenge the 4th and 3, which was an incompletion, which led to the first down. The second touchdown drive for the Eagles, the Niners committed 3 penalties on 3rd down that allowed the drive to be completed for a touchdown. Their 3rd touchdown came when their 58th quarterback, Josh Johnson, fumbled inside the 20, short field. And their 4th touchdown came on a roughing the punter on a 4th and 6. I mean, the Niners didn't have a quarterback, and they made a million mistakes. Look, the Eagles did what good teams do. You take advantage of a bad team's mistakes. I want to see if Jalen Hurts can throw. I want to see if Jalen Hurts can run with authority. Last few weeks, when he's slides, runs out of bounds. This is a guy who squats 700 pounds. Like, he scored touchdowns this year, dragging people into the end zone. He's not doing that right now. If I'm Steve Spagnuolo, defensive coordinator for the Chiefs, I load up to stop the run and look at Jalen Hurts and say, prove to me you can throw it. And if he does, then maybe we change things.
So this Eagles defense has obviously been great all season long from start to finish. What do they got to do against Mahomes? They got to make him feel uncomfortable, obviously get some pressure on it. But on top of that, you can really only hope to contain Mahomes.
Yeah, look, one of the key matchups of this game is Hassan Reddick against Andrew Wiley, who is the right tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs. Wiley is either really good or really sporadic. He needs to be really good.
Yeah.
He has to be really good. In fact, I would argue the 2 most important players for Kansas City are Andrew Wiley and Chris Jones. Chris Jones is going to have to win against Jason Kelce. He's going to have to win against Lane Johnson. Lane Johnson is, if not the best tackle in football, he's by far the best right tackle in football. He's also a little banged up. The other thing I would say is this Eagles defense has been great. Who have they played? I'm not.
That's
not
the biggest knock with the Eagles. Is how proven are they? Yeah.
Who is the best quarterback this Eagles defense? Is it Kirk Cousins? Is it Dak Prescott, who led the league with 15 interceptions despite missing 5 games, which is remarkable? Is it Trevor Lawrence in week 3, I think it was, in a monsoon before the Jags were good? Look, they've been really good. Here are the quarterbacks the Chiefs defense has played. Joe Burrow twice. Josh Allen. Trevor Lawrence twice. Justin Herbert twice. They have gone up against the cream of the crop. Yeah, they played Bryce Perkins when everyone was up for the Rams. I get that. They've seen top quarterback play in the NFL. In their last 5 games, the Chiefs have given up only 1 touchdown pass per game against a lot of those top quarterbacks, against Burrow, against Trevor Lawrence, going all the way through the end of the regular season. The Chiefs defense was really average or below average at the start of the season, but they have 7 rookies that play on defense. And as the season got better, they played much better. The Chiefs defense is battle tested, I think, in ways that the Eagles defense is not. The Eagles defense is better. Don't get me wrong. They're better. But have they played a Patrick Mahomes? I don't think so.
Here with Trey Wingo. And Trey, you mentioned Caesar Sportsbook. I'm very curious. When you first, broke into the media industry, it'd be kind of unimaginable for you or for anybody to be working for a sports betting company. So I'm just curious, how have you seen the industry change over the years to obviously be much more accepting of sports betting and have it be such a big part of the media industry nowadays?
Well, look, forget when I broke in 2012 or 2013, Tony Romo was barred from holding a fantasy football convention in a hotel in Las Vegas. The NFL said you can't do that.
Las Vegas.
In Las Vegas.
Yeah.
We don't have a team in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
We had the draft in Las Vegas this past year. We're going to have a Super Bowl in Las Vegas next year. Once the Supreme Court struck down the law prohibiting sports betting from being anywhere, the NFL did what the NFL does best. They did like this. I smell money. And they realized there was money to be made. There's a reason it's a $20 billion a year industry. So once those rules changed or the law changed, everything changed. And the NFL was really smart, and they partnered with Caesars and a few other teams to be the official betting partners of the NFL. And it's changed everything. Like when I was doing NFL Live and we would do preseason predictions, we couldn't say win totals. We couldn't say over under. And we couldn't use the team name. We would have to say the team from Dallas, more than or less than 10.5 wins. Al Michaels forever used to always say that kick means a lot for a lot of people in the desert. That's really important for some people in the desert. Now we're just honest about it. Like we're just being open and honest about it. Like this has always been a part of it. Do you know why the injury report exists? So you can set the line correctly. So no one has inside information that might affect how someone bets on a game. That's why the injury report exists, to set the line correctly. It's always been there. Now we're just being honest about it.
So a little bit before my time, but I'm still a diehard San Francisco 49ers fan. You went to high school with Steve Young.
I did.
Can you just talk about what he was like in high school? Give us a little story.
He was the worst passing quarterback I've ever seen. And he'll tell you this. Like I had him on the pod, Half Forgotten History. Check it out. He went to BYU because he's a direct descendant of Brigham Young. Of course, there are probably 8 million of those, but that's a separate issue entirely. Yes. But he's a direct descendant of Brigham Young. He didn't know how to throw a football. And when he went to college, he went there as a defensive back. And I remember it was the Holiday Bowl in 1980 something, I don't know. And we saw a glimpse of Steve on the sidelines. We're like, laugh, 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 joke, joke, joke. That's the most we'll ever see him playing football on TV. But when he went to BYU, I can't remember who his coordinator was, but he said he wanted to maybe try quarterback, and he said, "Yeah, I don't like lefties," and walked away. Like that was it. Wow. Not like, "Let me see you throw." What do you think? Nah, don't like lefties. Well, that's dumb, And then he got
to be dumb.
Yeah,
too.
And then he got Ted Tollner there, who went on to be the head coach at USC, and he let him throw. And then the year between his freshman and sophomore year, like 3 of their quarterbacks went on their Mormon mission that year. So they needed depth. So they asked Steve to come over from defense just to give him a little depth on the quarterback position. And then he started looking really good in practice. First game of the season, the first string quarterback goes down. Second game of the season, second string quarterback goes down. Third game of the season, in comes Steve Young, throws for 300 plus yards, runs for 120, and that was about it.
Love it. Trey Wingo, thank you so much. I just want one more here before we get you out of here. Just your Super Bowl prediction. You kind of leaned a lean one way, but I want to get the official prediction.
Listen,
who do you think's winning this
well,
game?
I was on Kansas City before the season began. I'd be really stupid to jump off it now.
There you go.
Nothing would surprise me.
Yeah.
Eagles win, Chiefs win.
I mean, it's
Chiefs
only,
blow
it's
out.
only 1.5.
It's basically a pick 'em.
So, yeah.
It's basically a pick 'em. I'm leaning Chiefs because the Chiefs realize this is their chance to cement themselves as a dynastic team. You can't be a dynasty and go to 3 Super Bowls in 4 years and only win one of them. They need to put the hammer down. And I think this is an over my dead body game for Patrick Mahomes. And he has a few of those. He'll do whatever is necessary to make sure they come out on top.
That's Trey Wingo, Sam Davis, and Danny Scott. Trey, thanks so much for being some time.
You got it, guys. Take care. Have a great week.
We'll be right back with more one-on-one. Sam Davis and
We're back on one-on-one, New York's longest running call-in show live.
It's been a long 3 days,
Radio Row.
Andrew. I don't blame you one bit.
Andrew Galata here with Danny Scott and Ryan Gregoire. And guys, we just had about an hour and a half worth of guests back to back to back. So we get to catch our breath a little bit and talk about the game at hand. The reason that we're all here, Chiefs, Eagles, should definitely be a good one as we get closer. You know, for me, I am starting to feel like this game is like kind of has to happen now. Like, I feel like the anticipation's over. Like, if the game was tomorrow, I don't think any of us would be upset about that. But still a few more days. These two teams, I feel like we've talked a lot about it so far, but now we're inching closer and closer. We've been to the media availabilities for both teams. Ryan, I guess I'll start off with you. What's one thing that's really stucking out over the week when you've visited with Eagles and Chiefs?
Well, you know, what I think of in doing a deep dive on these teams, particularly, you know, the Eagles and some of the Chiefs players that are, I think, a little less known. These teams, two best teams all year, they're absolutely stacked. And I'm sure every year, like, there's the argument when the Super Bowl gets closer, these are the best teams. This is the best matchup ever, most anticipated. But really factoring out the storylines in terms of on the football field, I believe that this is one of the best Super Bowls on paper I've ever seen. And I'd be shocked if this one goes, you know, like an absolute blowout in one direction. Like, you just even look at last year's Super Bowl, there were clear weaknesses for the Bengals offensive line. You don't have those same glaring issues with either of these two teams. The Chiefs roster as a whole is top to bottom not as good as the Eagles, but you got the best quarterback in the game. You have Andy Reid. When you have those two guys, it's funny. I'm just looking at, you know, almost Andy Reid right now. It's hard to talking about Andy Reid. It's like, oh, it's not Andy Reid. It's almost Andy Reid. Funny interview earlier. When you factor in the Mahomes Reid aspect and then the storylines, I really don't believe, and maybe I'm biased because I'm at Radio Row, there's been a Super Bowl with as much juice as this one.
Yeah, this game just I don't know if I can say it's the two best teams because I think the Niners.
Well, we know why you want to say that.
With the healthy quarterback, we could be having a completely different week here. I would be having a lot of fun if the Niners were here. But, you know, the Eagles are a darn good football team. They're very good top to bottom, probably have the best top to bottom roster in the entire NFL. And then the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. They have the brains and the quarterback to get it done. I think this is one of the closest matchups I've ever seen, and I think the spread shows that it's 1.5, essentially a pick 'em in this.
It's not
game.
really moving either, which
and
is
it's
very
not,
tough.
yes. I think these are two very, very evenly matched teams, and it's going to be a great game. You got two electric offenses. The Eagles have a very good defense in the NFL, and the Chiefs are no slouches themselves. They've been pretty consistently good for about the last 8 weeks or so.
You know, it's kind of funny because obviously the line's so close. Both of these are 1 seeds, which usually doesn't happen too often, which kind of just shows you how good they are, both at 14-3. And I think the last time this happened was, I want to say it's the Broncos and Seahawks, was it? Or it was, I don't know if they were exactly 1 seed.
I'd have to look.
But I remember everyone talking about that game, how it was going to be so great. Peyton Manning was firing on all cylinders, and the Seahawks were coming in with Legion of Boom, and it's going to be this, battle of the wits. And the Seahawks just blew the doors off the Broncos. So,
14.
Yeah, 43-8, I think the final score was. So you don't really know which way the game was going to go. Because I was in New York. I remember my dad, we went to the fan experience in New York City, and he was like, wow, this is going to be the best Super Bowl ever. And it was just a laugher. I don't even know if he made it through the whole game. So, I mean, obviously the hype is there. I'm just hoping the game kind of, backs up that hype. I think it will. And, just looking at how these two teams, I mean, the Chiefs, first of all, Mahomes and Andy Reid, you can't say enough about them. And the Eagles to lose 2 out of their last 3 and their quarterback to come back with that adversity, now go to the Super Bowl, shows a lot about both teams.
And what I would say to your point is, you remember going back 2 years ago when the Chiefs played the Bucs, it's Mahomes Brady. That was such a storyline. You have the most accomplished quarterback ever in Tom Brady, the guy who was gunning for that title in Patrick Mahomes, who was anointed next up. And that Super Bowl was horrible. And that's what you look at this year, and you hold your breath and you hope it doesn't happen. I think the Chiefs have learned a lot from that experience, more than they did from the win the year before. It's that game versus the 49ers, if you look back at it, they were really lucky to win that football game. Down, and Danny,
don't remind me.
Down 20-10. If Jimmy Garoppolo makes one throw, they're the champions. And I think, the Chiefs got humbled the year after. So they worked to not necessarily go for all the flash, but to shore up the trenches, particularly that offensive line. They've done that the last few years. Now they're back here more retooled. But I think this matchup on the other end with Philadelphia, how stacked they are on that defensive front, it's going to make it very difficult. And we've talked about it a lot. The trenches was something the Chiefs lost 2 years ago. This year, they're a lot more prepared for it.
Yeah, and I got to talk to 8 out of the 10 offensive lineman starters in this game. And every single one of them is talking about how important the battle of the trenches is. I believe I said it on yesterday's show, but it's really true. Jason Kelsey, he said, it was a great quote. He said, you can't win the game with the battle of the trenches, but you can definitely lose it.
Yeah.
And if the Chiefs are playing like they were in, 2020, where Patrick Mahomes is running around for his life, they're going to lose this game. They don't have Tyreek Hill to make plays. They still got Kelsey, but you don't have that one guy that can just burn everyone, make guys miss.
I don't even know if that matters, because they had Tyreek Hill in 2020 and it didn't matter.
Exactly. But
Mahomes didn't throw a touchdown.
I think now that's even more highlighted, because you don't have that guy that your safety valve. You still got Kelsey, but as a receiver, you don't have that safety valve. But the battle of the trenches is absolutely going to be the most important part of this game. The Chiefs completely retooled their offensive line, go out, get Joe Thuney, draft Creed Humphrey, trade for Orlando Brown. They only have one guy left from that line, and he didn't even start in that game.
I mean, it's really crazy. Another thing, you talk about the trenches, the turnover ratio. I think that's the biggest thing. If you win the turnover battle in the Super Bowl, you most likely will win the game. I know it's at a different level, but I remember Coach Joe Conlon all season long, if we win the turnover battle, we're going to win, especially in the playoffs. Now, the Rams unfortunately lost the turnover battle against New Hampshire, as we all 3 saw, but that is the key thing in playoff games that can change everything. And if Patrick Mahomes throws an interception, I think that in the playoffs, he's only won once or twice. So it's something that, if you can play a clean brand of football, you are going to win this game. I think if any of these teams, if they just say, we play our brand, they're going to win the game. If it's the Chiefs, give it to Patrick Mahomes, let him, have a clear pocket, throw it around. If it's the Eagles, get up early, run the ball. Whatever team could do their, brand of football the best, they're probably going to come out on top.
The Eagles don't turn the ball over either, because they just run it down your throat. And you look at it last game, Pacheco on the Chiefs did not have a good day on the ground, But this is a game with how much the Eagles can throw at you rushing the football. You need to match it. Fortunately, the Chiefs' run defense did a great job of halting Joe Mixon, so it was neutralized. Both teams had zero run game. The Chiefs aren't going to be able to win the Super Bowl not running the football at all. Even you go back 2 years ago when they won it, Damian Williams, a lot of people argue he should have been the MVP of that Super Bowl. He had a great game on the ground. They were able to have that rushing element and then beat the 49ers, run out the clock late, not let Jimmy Garoppolo get another chance at it. That's what they really need to do in this one. The Eagles, we know they are committed to the run, top 5 in the NFL in terms of rushing attempts. They run it at a spectacular rate. Jalen Hurts as well. We know 700 plus rushing yards for him. The Chiefs have to find ways to neutralize that. It won't be Patrick Mahomes on the ground. Whatever that ankle is, we know it's not 100%. They have to find ways with their running backs to get it going, because I think when you look at the end of the day, you need a rushing attack to win a Super Bowl.
Yes and no, because we've seen the Chiefs do it without a rusher.
Not
win
a Super Bowl though, but they've won Super Bowl. In that Super Bowl, they ran the football.
Well, in the game they did.
Yeah.
But overall in the season, maybe they didn't.
Well, you can win games.
Yeah.
You can get far in the playoffs. There's going to come a time every season that you need to pick up 4 yards on 3rd and 3. And if you can do that on the ground, great.
And that's also like, I mean, if you're throwing the ball less, that's less chance for an interception. That too.
But with the Chiefs,
I think
it's you have a higher chance. You have a higher chance of throwing a 4-yard out to Travis Kelce than picking up a 4-yard rush on 3rd and 3.
Which could be an issue. You know, it hasn't been. It hasn't been for Travis Kelce, but this is a matchup with what the Eagles will bring at you with how deep they are on defense. You know, I'm not going to say they're going to take away Travis Kelce, because he is always going to get his. And even if Juju doesn't play, Tony doesn't play, it doesn't matter. They can put 4 guys on Kelce. He's going to get open. But there's going to come a time, Danny, where you need to run the ball for a first down.
Yes, I completely get it. And I playing devil's advocate.
And
because I'm a huge pound the rock type of guy. As a former offensive lineman in high school, I love when teams got good.
Is this how many times have you brought up that this week? A few?
I mean,
I think more in the
on
sound.
air.
Okay.
Yeah, more in the sound.
It was more the audio, but I love great rushing attacks, but I don't think the Chiefs need it. They play so well without having a crazy rushing attack. I mean, Isaiah Pacheco only has 120 rushing yards in the entire postseason. They haven't needed to rush the football. No, and then Mahomes has 600 passing yards. So
and listen, I get it. I come from an analytical point of view, and that's obviously going away from the run. So I get it. I just think looking back at the Chiefs' success versus lack of success in these big games, it comes down to that at the end of the day. And, you know, I think they can survive without being run dominant, because
told you so.
Maybe in this game, though, you have Brandon Graham and those guys getting to Patrick Mahomes, or on the back end. And I was surprised by this. The Eagles are the #1 pass defense in the league as well. Maybe you have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, James Bradbury, and those guys, Darius Slay, and they're going to make a play on these receivers. And I think that's something that's really interesting, because everyone's talking about to keep Patrick Mahomes upright. That's like, we've talked about it so much. The media has talked about it so much. But this back end for the Eagles, that's a scary group. And the Chiefs, obviously with Patrick Mahomes, you have that guy, but the receivers that are around him aren't at that Tyreek Hill level. Obviously, they have Travis Kelce, so that will be a huge challenge for the secondary. But, you know, the Jujus of the world, obviously great receivers, but not to the level, I think, of the cornerback play of a Darius Slay, James Bradbury at the 2 spot.
Let me throw a stat at both you guys, and I want to ask you a question. And we were talking about this thing off there. Maybe it was brought up, but not when I was on, I know for certain. So there have been 2 times in NFL history, the #1 pass defense that you talked about has faced the #1 passing attack in the Super Bowl. That's happened 2 times. It happened Bucks Raiders in 2002 and that Broncos Seahawks game that we just alluded to. Average score of those, the passing defense is 2-0. They've won by a combined or an average of 31 points. What are some of the ways in this one the Chiefs are able to rewrite that narrative and flip the script on that stat?
That's always Patrick the most. Mahomes. Yes, but you have 2 weeks to prep.
Manning.
you have 2 weeks to prep for Patrick Mahomes too. I think that plays a huge factor into it, and why the defenses usually have that edge. It's because of you're in that 2 weeks of, okay, this is what they do really well. Now Andy Reid loves to throw wrenches in there, and I bet that the Eagles are trying to forecast what that will be. But when you have 2 weeks to practice for a team, it's much harder for an offense compared to a defense, and I think that's why that's always the most important thing.
Well, so to answer your question of how can they rewrite this is they have arguably the greatest offensive-minded head coach in the NFL.
He's the best coach in NFL history off a bye, and this is not a bye, but it's an extra week to prepare.
Yeah.
So
but the other team also has an extra week.
You're right.
Yeah, but he arguably the greatest offensive-minded head coach in the history of football, plus arguably the most talented quarterback in the history of football.
Yeah.
I think if you're rewriting that script, that's a pretty good recipe to have, especially if you're facing the number one pass defense. And I think the game has shifted even since the Manning time, where it was
Seahawks.
The Seahawks. What was that? 2015, 16?
Earlier than that, I think. I don't know.
It was 2014.
No.
Regardless of the fact,
Ravens. Who? Ravens.
20
Seahawks won right after the Ravens, right? Or was the whatever? Doesn't matter.
yeah. Regardless.
Giants
of
in 11, 2012.
Ravens.
He was the Ravens.
Yeah.
2013
Might have been the Seahawks.
it was Seahawks.
Seahawks.
2014. Yeah.
Okay, we did it. We got there. It's been a long week, guys.
regardless of the fact of when it was approaching 10 years ago. The NFL has shifted even more since then to a pass-centric
That's a
game.
different league than it was.
It's completely different than it was a decade. It's not completely different, but it's a way more pass-centric game now, so even more than it was 10 years ago. And you have these athletic quarterbacks that are running around making plays. I mean, Peyton Manning's not picking up first downs with his legs or getting out of the pocket and hucking the ball 60 yards downfield to an open receiver. Mahomes is doing that, though.
Yeah, and we'll see if it's sustainable. And I agree with you. I was just, bringing up the question because we did see the Chiefs in this moment get exposed.
In 2020, that's what I'm a little worried about.
Without a good offensive line, though, guys. They completely retooled.
But that I think that the Eagles' defensive line is probably better than what the Bucks' defensive line was, and that Bucks' defensive line was
deeper.
very good.
Guys,
they're good.
It's very deep. It's very deep.
It's going to be an interesting thing, and also I am a little worried about the Eagles. I don't think they've been tested to the same amount the Chiefs are. I know we talked about it a lot, so I don't want to keep badgering that point, but I think that has something to do with it as well. But it worries me as someone I'm usually a Patrick Mahomes believer at all costs, and I don't like to bet against him. But when you look at that 2020 game, and as a Saints fan, you're like, Mahomes got it in the bag. Bucks won't win. It'll be fine. And then he just completely basically running for his life the whole time. Bucks win the Super Bowl. And ever since then, well, if you can get pressure on Mahomes like that, especially with his bum ankle right now, you could beat him. It's not like last week he was invincible or 2 weeks ago against the Bengals either. So it's going to be, I think, a very interesting telling story. I think whoever probably wins that matchup probably will win the game. But looking at that chess match between Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo, who has a ton of experience in the Super Bowl as well, it's very interesting.
No, for sure. And obviously, these last 2 years have reminded us the Chiefs are just a human, because I remember thinking Patrick Mahomes was going to just, oh my God, is this guy going to win the Super Bowl every year? After it seemed like luck really went against him his rookie year, that overtime loss. They end up changing the rules a few years later after he benefits from the rule, but we have that Super Bowl. Then you lose at Arrowhead to the Bengals, a team that came out of nowhere that season. Nobody saw coming. 10-7 regular season and shocked you in your house. This year, they're much more prepared for it. It still came down wire to wire. Now I think the Chiefs understand. I think those losses will help them a lot. And we'll obviously get into picks later. And I'm going both sides here in terms of what I'm talking about now. But I think you can look at it. Certainly, the Eagles have not been tested nearly as much as the Chiefs. That does help them a lot in this game.
We keep harping on this point. The Chiefs have played a much tougher level of competition. And they've played, even though Jalen Hurts was second in MVP voting this year, you can't tell me he's a top 5 quarterback right now in football. The Chiefs have played all 5. They got the one, and then they've also played Joe Burrow, Josh Allen a couple times. Trevor Lawrence is looking really good. Justin Herbert has been great. They've faced teams with these crazy quarterbacks that are making more plays than Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is great. Don't get me wrong. He's a very good quarterback. Top 10 in mocks right now.
He's not Joe Burrow.
He's not Joe Burrow. He's not Josh Allen. He is not the reason that the Eagles have been fantastic this year. I mean, we saw them with Gardner Minshew, but Gardner Minshew's a below average quarterback. He's a fine backup.
He's a backup.
But you put any other relative starter on this Eagles team, it's the same thing that the Niners did with Garoppolo. They've just been pulling.
I think the one difference is the scheme is built around Jalen Hurts' rushing ability, so you couldn't just throw a pocket passer out there and be fine. But I mean, that's been the theme all year, guys. You look at the AFC and NFC, and this is one of the things with Rodgers that we've talked about. The move to the AFC for him is not a smart one in terms of the quarterbacks you have to face. It is an absolute gauntlet. It's not in the NFC. NFC is wide open. We saw the Eagles get here this year. Jalen Hurts probably the best quarterback in that conference. Massive drop off after him. In terms of this season, like Dak Prescott was probably the second best quarterback in the NFC this year. I think you can make that argument if you look at the numbers perspective. No, I really do think you can.
Yeah.
And he led the league in picks, so.
But I think that proves the point in terms of it is a weak conference in terms of quarterbacks.
How about Brock
So the
Purdy?
test, yeah, I mean, and he put up numbers, and that's
All
what
right.
I'm saying. Yeah,
I mean, Geno Smith may be right there too. Then why
yeah,
not put
Geno
him in there?
Smith. Maybe Geno Smith was the second best quarterback.
It's
Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins was actually
Okay,
probably the
but-
second best quarterback.
and these are the guys we're talking about.
It's
and
bad.
We don't hold them in the same
It's bad.
regard. So if that is the theme that, I think we could look back after the Super Bowl if the Chiefs take care of business. Okay, well, yeah, that makes NFC this year wasn't. It makes sense. Whoever came out of a completely battle-tested AFC was a lot more prepared than the NFC. But I don't think the NFL necessarily works like that because each game is wildly different.
Yeah, yeah.
And with the extra week to prepare, it doesn't matter if you haven't faced anybody. They clearly have the talent to get here, and I think that's all that matters.
I mean, look at last year. The AFC was, to me, still leaps and bounds ahead of the NFC, and, and the Rams win the game. Like, it's definitely not matter about that maybe compared to other sports, but, like, it is interesting to see what the Eagles are because they're a team that I feel like kind of like the Bucs though in 2020, where you feel like they weren't 100% tested in those games leading up. Now they obviously had some big, they had some big wins. Don't get me wrong, probably more than the Eagles, but you still were a little kind of so-so on them. Tom Brady wasn't really playing his best football, and the defense really took advantage, and they took advantage of Patrick Mahomes when no one thought it. You can do that.
I mean, Taylor Heineke almost
Taylor
put them on
Heineke
upset
almost
watch.
beat them. I mean, if
in
Drew Brees
game
doesn't
one.
go three
Yeah,
picks, they probably don't win that game. Please, I don't have to rewrite that one again. And then Aaron Rodgers basically has, I think, multiple chances
the
to win
Packers
that game.
forgot how to
run the offense.
Yeah.
You definitely see this before, and they obviously won the Super Bowl, the Bucs, and they crushed the Chiefs. It wasn't even close. So it is interesting to see what the Chiefs or the Eagles truly are, but like every chance that they have, and like, oh, they're going to lose this game, they win it. And because people were saying that about the Giants, the 49ers, to me, you just throw that out just because the whole quarterback situation, but they did win that game as well. So that's what I'm interested in.
I will say in the Niners thing, I know we talked about it, a different story. The bottom line, the defense, the Eagles still did exactly what they wanted on offense.
But they got ahead. I think it's complete. Yeah,
that's a watch.
I throw it out.
Even though they scored 31 on the Niners, they were getting the ball back at their own 40-yard line. Like,
if they beat the Cowboys, I would have thought that this team would probably be much more positive in my mind. They did it. They kind of skated through. And
they didn't get to face the Cowboys.
Yeah, they got lucky. Yeah. They didn't get to face the Cowboys, and they didn't have to face the 49ers at full strength with the quarterbacks.
So, with their fifth-string quarterback.
So, when you look at what they're able to do, yes, they got to the Super Bowl. Yes, they're this wonderful team. But even going around the regular season, there are not a lot of tests there.
And I think, though, that's the NFL. To win a Super Bowl, you're going to need some luck. You're going to need the coin to flip in your direction more often than not. And so I think that's just, it doesn't matter for the Super Bowl. It matters leading up to it. If, we're talking about resumes and rankings and stuff, okay, that can matter. But once they get on the field, I don't think it matters who you face. Do you have it?
No. But it's kind of what is your talent at? What are you truly? I mean, in December, I saw this team lose to the Saints. I know it was with Gardner Minshew, but the Saints, are a dreadful team in my opinion. So, Saints were able to march into Philadelphia, even with the backup, and get the win. Ever since then, they've been able to, kind of right the ship, beat the Giants a few times, but they've obviously had their number. But to me, that's the most interesting thing. And I think the Chiefs, they're obviously the biggest test in the league. So we'll see that, I think, on full display on Sunday. But I think that'll wrap up this segment here talking about the Super Bowl. We'll be right back live one-on-one from Radio Row.
Danny Scott here with Andrew Galata, and we got a special guest, the Schmo. How you doing today?
The Schmo can't complain. We're at Radio Row. It's Thursday. We got the big game on Sunday. Patrick Mahomes against Jalen Hurts. Two top-tier offenses going at it. Life is good.
So what has your experience of radio been so far?
Well, the Schmo just got here today, actually. The Schmo used to cover Radio Row every single year. And then the past 2 years we took off. We've been doing a lot of MMA, UFC content. We had the COVID-19. So the last time the Schmo was here was actually Miami in 2020, right before the crazy pandemic. But I love it. There's action packed. There's people here, a lot of schmoozing, a lot of top alpha athletes walking around here.
So I know you're a big UFC guy, as you just said. What are your thoughts on the Michael Chandler, Conor McGregor Ultimate Fighter?
Well, the fans win here. You can't go wrong. Anytime you got Conor McGregor on live TV, it's must-see TV. And then you got Michael Chandler, who's been chomping at the bit at this fight ever since he stepped foot inside the UFC. This guy's game. He's been calling out Conor McGregor. Now, the one thing of note that's interesting is this fight going to be at 170 pounds or is it going to be 155? They both fight at 155. But Conor McGregor recently in his comeback has been fighting at 170 pounds. Chandler said he'd fight him at 170. It's a great spectacle.
So this weekend, UFC 284, absolutely loaded card. Outside of the Makhachev and Volkanovski fight, which one on this card are you looking at as a must-watch?
Well, there's a lot of must-watch, but there's a guy out there named Jack Della. Now, Jack Della, a lot of people don't know about this guy. Now, he's an Australian fighter, and he's going up against a guy named Randy Brown, who's long, lengthy, athletic. It's a real test for Jack Della. Jack Della gets through Randy Brown. He's going to be up there in the upper echelon fighting the top 15 in the welterweight division. You keep your eye on him. And then the co-main, you got an interim title fight because Volkanovski's going up to fight at 155. Then you have Josh Emmett against Yair Rodriguez. Both guys can hit hard, and the Schmo expects a finish.
And I know you've done a ton of interviews in your career, including Patrick Mahomes, Terrell Owens, Chris Carter. You could go on forever, but what's your favorite?
There's a lot of favorites. It would just depend on the sport, but the Schmo absolutely loves the legends of sport. Bill Walton's got to be right up there because he's a wacky guy just like the Schmo. He's right there. Schmoment with Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, two of the heavyweight champions, the best heavyweight boxers of the Schmo's generation, our generation right now. The legend Mike Tyson's up there too. The Schmo can go on and on, but those stand out.
So quick two-parter to wrap it up. We need predictions for Makhachev and Volkanovski and Eagles Chiefs. Where are you going in both of those?
I mean, there's a reason why Volkanovski's a 3-1 dog. You got to go with Makhachev. Look what he's done. It's scary. He's got the power. Dagestan wrestling. Like, that's why the Schmo will lean there. And the Schmo predicted before the season started, we'd have Eagles, Bills in the Super Bowl. One of those teams made it. We got to stick with at least one of them. It's going to be Philadelphia Eagles.
All right. Well, the Schmo, thank you so much. I'm Danny Scott for Andrew Galata. Thanks for tuning in.
Welcome back to One on One, live from Radio Row, Super Bowl 57. Sam Davis, Ryan Gregory are now joined by Kevin Blackistone from ESPN Around the Horn, and he is promoting a really awesome opportunity here, imagining the Indian to fight against Native American mascot. And just talk me through that. It's premiering tonight, as we were talking, but
Sure.
Just talk me through all that.
Yeah, it's a movie I started working on in 2014, and it was about the effort to cleanse sports of Native American iconography and names and images which indigenous people in this country find offensive. And we did a deep dive into the history of it, why they find it troublesome, and why they've been fighting for years, for longer than anybody can really realize, to get rid of these images. And it premiered in April of last year. We won a couple of awards. We were a finalist for the Ken Burns Award for film, for documentary filmmaking. And we just thought that it would be good to have a screening of it here with Kansas City on deck in the Super Bowl.
Now, throughout this process of developing it, what are some of the things you learned along the way that maybe you didn't expect?
One of the things is the development of these names and the iconographic images that go along with it, which really go back to the turn of the last century. That's really when they were born, and they happen to come out of a time in this country, if you know anything about the film Birth of a Nation, and the rise of the KKK in the around World War I. It was a time of tremendous racial conflict in this country, and that's really where these names were seeded. And that's when a lot of teams, professional teams, college teams, began, for whatever reasons, to adopt these names. It was also a time when Native people who had survived their own Holocaust, which was horrible. The numbers of Native people who were killed in a very short period of time. Those who survived that, and you know a little bit about this today because you've heard about the boarding school tragedies. They were taken off their land. They were stuck into schools which attempted to strip them of their culture, and yet they saw their culture appropriated for the means of sports teams and for commercial products that would flourish throughout the country.
Kevin, what was the motivation or inspiration to put this together, to start working on this?
Things. Number one, I'm from Washington, D.C. originally.
Okay.
So I grew up in a household that was a heavy Washington football.
Yes. Commanders now, obviously.
Right, Commanders, which I can't even
football
say.
Team for a year or so, and then,
they get rid of an opprobrious name and pick up a name that's nobody even likes, and it has some issues as well.
I had no problem with football team, to be honest.
I thought that was so original, right?
Yeah.
Right. Harkens to European soccer, right?
They made the playoffs with it. It was like a new identity.
But there you go. But no, we don't. The ownership of this team, the management of this team, does not do things smartly. So this is just another chapter in that. But as a fan, I went to one Super Bowl, and that was the one in Minnesota between Washington and Buffalo, and that was 1992. And as I'm walking into the Metrodome in Minneapolis, I noticed a commotion, and I walked over to inspect what the commotion was, and it was a big protest against the name. And I had never thought about what these people were, this organization of Native folk were arguing about. And at any rate, I had it, I had my jersey on and, all that kind of stuff. I went in, I didn't think about it anymore until the mid-90s, and I was working at the Dallas Morning News at the time, and there was a protest by the NAACP in Midland, Texas, which is out in the Panhandle, and they were protesting against their high school, which was Midland Lee High School, and the fact that their kids, black kids, had to wear these Confederate colors. I think that the team's mascot was Rebel somebody. They flew the Dixie flag. And I was writing about that, obviously in support of the protest from the NAACP. And that made me think back to what I had seen in Minnesota. I was like, wait a second, this is kind of the same thing. I immediately identified with this, and now I can understand what Native people are identifying with when they see their images of themselves and names that are slurs used as team names and on team uniforms and that sort of thing. So that's when I really started to study it. And then just by chance, I was telling my father about it, and he was a longtime Washington football team ticket owner since before I was born. And he showed me a letter that he had written in 1965 to the team's president, the Washington team president, objecting to having the band play Dixie as part of its repertoire at the beginning of every game. And the owner at that time, Edward Bennett Williams, wrote my father back and said, thank you for bringing that to my attention. We apologize, and we'll see that's never done again. So that made me think, wait a second, this team has approached a sensitive issue like this before. It's corrected it. Now, the name has been brought to its attention. Why can't it correct that? So that's really what got me into this.
Now, Kevin, before we get into the game and everything in terms of that, we're WFUV Foreign radio station. You work on Around the Horn with Tony Reale.
We just talked about Tony right before.
That's right. That's right.
One of our alums. Could you just share some insight on him? What makes him such an upbeat person, great person to work with?
He is high octane, man. Energy. He's a great guy. He has a great heart. He pours his heart and soul into this show that's been on the air now for 20 years, if you can believe it. He's as genuine as they come, and he's a real people person. And from afar, if you watch the show, you think that we kind of sit down, they turn on the mics, turn on the lights, and we just start gabbing. No, it's not like that. It's a production that starts literally the night before, when the final scores start coming in. Storylines are getting developed, so people pay attention to that. Tony's paying attention to it, watching as many games as possible. So are the producers and directors of the show. They're probably texting each other or emailing each other. By 8 o'clock in the morning, I think people start to get into the office and start putting Google Docs together, what the show is going to look like. We have a conference call at about 10:30 in the morning that takes about an hour. Then there are more changes made to the show. Tony starts writing his script. The show is scripted from his point of view, to keep everything rolling. Everything gets timed out. You all know this. You're in broadcasting. And then the magic starts around 2 o'clock, a little after, in the afternoon. We try and do the show, it's really a technological marvel. And remember, he was not the original show host, right? He came after Max Kellerman, and he was just known then as Stat Boy, and that is so far in his past now. But it was really part of his launching pad, and obviously to put him in this position at his age after what he was doing. And a little bit of screen time that he had meant that people like Eric Rideholm, who's the brains of PTI and Around the Horn, to name two shows, had a lot of faith in him, and he's not at all proving them wrong.
Kevin, thank you so much for being with us. Last question here is the pick on the game. I got to get what your thoughts on the game are, and obviously a prediction for Sunday.
I think the Eagles have been the best team, most consistent team in football all year, even when they had to overcome injuries. I think Jalen Hurts has recovered more from his injury than Patrick Mahomes has his. I think their defense is better, and I think they'll be able to expose Kansas City. I also like their running game a lot more. So I'm looking at a score of something like 30-17 Eagles.
Got it.
Oh, I should point out, the woman in my house was born in Philadelphia.
Okay.
Okay, that's an important asterisk
Okay.
right there. You should have
Okay.
led with that.
Yeah, you should have led with that instead of throwing that at the end. Love it. But that's the pick from Kevin Blackistone, ESPN Around the Horn. Kevin, thanks for being with us.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you all.
And Phil, where can anybody watch this or
It's
where's
not
it
on
premiere?
stream. It's not on streaming yet, but at the end of March, we're having a theatrical release in about 7 cities across the country. So look for it. Imagine the Indian may be at a theater coming to
New
you.
York?
It is coming to New
Awesome.
York to the Quad Theater.
Awesome.
I believe starting, I want to say March 31st at the
Great.
Quad Theater for a week.
There you go. Perfect. That's Kevin Blackistone. Kevin, thanks again.
Thank you all.
All right. We'll be right back with more one-on-one.
Welcome back to One on One, New York's longest running sports call-in show, live from Radio Row. Andrew Galati here alongside Ryan Gregoire, and we are joined by a very special guest. He's the co-executive director of Vet the Vote and second-generation Air Force veteran Anil Nathan. Anil, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
First, I just want to start off. Thank you for your service. 23 years in the Air Force is just amazing. I just had to start out with that.
Yeah, well, I should say my dad was 23 years. I was 7.
Seven,
but
okay.
between our family, we've got 30. So, but
Yeah.
thank you for saying that.
So I kind of just wanted to ask about what is Vet the Vote? How did it start? And just walk us through that process.
Yeah, absolutely. So Vet the Vote is a national campaign to recruit veterans and military family members to be the next generation of poll workers in our country. So, a lot of people know that participating in democracy means you need to show up and vote at the polls, right? But a lot of people don't understand that to make the polls run and to have our elections run smoothly, we need poll worker volunteers, patriotic citizens who say, I'm willing to devote time out of my day to help elections run. And what better community than the veteran and military family community to step up and fill some of that shortage that we have. And so, this was basically an idea that came out of a identification of a problem and a solution with a patriotic community that we already have in this country.
Obviously, we're live here from Radio Row, kind of the epicenter of the NFL. So what's the connection with the NFL with Vet the Vote, and how important is it?
Yeah, so the NFL is one of our major partners as part of a coalition of about 30 plus organizations that we built for Vet the Vote last year. And they've been an incredible, kind of partner in getting the word out to the veteran and military family community. Obviously, the NFL with its reach to fans all across the country of all political stripes, it's one of those unifying organizations and unifying parts of our country in the same way that veterans and military family members are. And so for us, they've been a great help in, putting out the word through a public service announcement that we ran on NFL Network over the course of the summer and the fall with Coach Rivera and Larry Fitzgerald. And also, helping us participate in events like this on Radio Row to meet as many people as we can and talk about how we can get more poll workers signed up.
Now, talk us through the next steps. You talk about signing up more poll workers. Are there plans to collaborate with other sports leagues, or just in general? What does the future hold for Vet the Vote?
Yeah, so last year was our first campaign, and it was a really great success. We got 63,000 people to sign up, which was I think a lot more than we were expecting, but there's a lot more that we can do. And so as we think about 2024 and the next election cycles for us, this is an ongoing process of making sure that people know that this is an opportunity to serve again. And so we'll be partnering with the NFL, our other partners, veteran service organizations like IAVA and AMVETS, the Chamber of Commerce, other kind of nonprofit organizations as well, to continue engaging with the veteran and military family community and the rest of the country and saying, that our elections are fair and trustworthy because we've got veterans and military family members on the job.
Now, the NFL really kind of intertwined with, veterans and the military, obviously a salute to service entire month, all the different shirts and hats that all the coaches and players wear. I mean, how important do you feel like that is for the NFL to give, that awareness to the military?
It's incredibly important. And the NFL has been such an awesome advocate and partner for veterans and the military, over the years. As you mentioned, the salute to service campaign is one of those things that is almost a gold standard of how a sports league or kind of a private entity can support the veteran and military family community. And so we were thrilled to have them as a partner and to figure out how we can tie into that salute to service campaign. But definitely super important for all the causes that they're involved with.
Now, the reason that we're here, Chiefs versus Eagles in the Super Bowl at Radio Row. While we're on that topic, talking about the NFL, what are your predictions on the game?
So I'm a Commanders fan, so I grew up in the DC area.
Okay.
And so, predictions wise, I think it's going to be a great game. Assuming that Mahomes is healthy, it feels like it's going to be a pretty big shootout. And so excited to see that. But my rooting interest has to be with the Chiefs, just from divisional. Yeah, exactly. But I respect a ton what the Eagles have built, and especially Jalen Hurts, man. He's awesome. So, but yeah, I think it's going to be a really, really good game, and hopefully it goes down to the wire. But I'm rooting for the Chiefs.
The co-executive director of Vet the Vote, Anil Nathan. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. We'll be right back on 101, New York's longest running sports call-in show.
Welcome back to One on One here at Radio Row, Super Bowl 57. It's Sam Davis, Andrew Galata, and Danny Scott now with us here. It's been a packed show today. It's been a packed week, and we're getting down to the wire, obviously, with the Super Bowl. And what does that mean? We got to give our picks, and we're not going to give them right now. We're going to give them in this segment, but we're not going to give them right this second because I would like to. I know you guys.
Now, Sam, you know what's going to happen is that we're going to get a guest come up right when we're about to give our picks.
Yeah, it's gonna be, I'm going to pick the, and then it's know, whoever comes. Hopefully that doesn't happen. And I think also the one thing I will say is were both of you on the segment earlier with Ryan when you guys were talking about the Super. So you guys have kind of really gone through a lot of the big storylines, a lot of the stuff. I want to get a couple points off though, and I think that's going to be important as well because obviously, you know, we've looked into the Super Bowl from a number of different ways heading into this one. I've really flip-flopped with who I've been, you know, leaning towards. I wouldn't say pick, but at least leaning towards. I would say heading into this, I was leaning towards the Eagles, and that's just based on off paper, the roster that they have, who they are, and from top to bottom, being the best team overall in the NFL. But that's not always how sports work. The winner on paper isn't always the winner in the actual contest, especially in a game like a Super Bowl when a lot can happen in terms of nerves leading up to the game, in terms of anticipation building. You know, we talked to the Eagles and, you know, the Chiefs as well. And everybody's kind of saying, a lot of the players are saying, let's just get the game started. Like they're done with these interviews. They're done with the 2 weeks.
I'm kind of like that too.
Yeah. Like,
way to go.
I think everybody here is like that. So I definitely don't blame them at all for being just ready to go, you know, and ready to really, you know, get on that big stage, on the biggest stage in sports. But I think ultimately in that environment, we aren't sure who's going to come out. Obviously, Jalen Hurts, you know, we talked about the injuries and for both sides, but with him personally, that shoulder, it's about as close to 100% as it's been all year, especially with him being out for the last couple or having 2 weeks off, excuse me. But it's still not 100%. Patrick Mahomes probably a little bit less than Jalen Hurts in terms of his health. He's definitely not at 100%. Nobody is right now. It's a grind of a football season, but Hurts being in his first Super Bowl with that shoulder the way that it is, and also the fact that we haven't seen a whole lot. I think I said this in the first day. In terms of Jalen Hurts, the numbers aren't eye-popping from the playoffs, at least. Obviously, he was an MVP finals, had a great regular season. But from the playoffs, and we haven't seen a whole lot of the Eagles, the numbers haven't jumped off the page for me. Obviously, you know, about 150 yards between in each game for Jalen Hurts. So overall, I mean, that's my biggest concern with picking the Eagles is that we don't know 100% what we're going to get from them. And we know on the other side, it's Patrick Mahomes, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's something that is really, really hard to pick against.
It's for me, I mean, like I everything but Patrick Mahomes, you would think would be Eagles.
Yeah.
But I'm just not one to pick against Patrick Mahomes very often. I think Patrick Mahomes, you know, he may go down as a top 5 type QB, maybe even higher. He's got basically all the intangibles he needs to win a Super Bowl with this team around him. What he's able to do. If he could just have a clear pocket, the Chiefs are going to win this game. If you can let Patrick Mahomes do what he's been able to do, I don't think you could say that about anybody else in the NFL.
Yeah, but that's a huge if. That's a huge if with the Eagles defensive line.
I don't know about a huge if, but it's an if.
I think it's a big if. I don't know. I think a team that leads the entire league in sacks. I mean, they're gonna get after Mahomes.
But
I think the bigger,
not like consistently.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I think the biggest thing though, for Mahomes especially, is how well is he gonna scramble out of the pocket? I mean, how well is he gonna be able to feel that pressure and be able to evade it, be able to get out of it? We know when he's healthy, he can do that better than just about anyone. But when he's hurt, when he's a little banged up, I'm not sure how that's going to be. That's a huge concern.
You know, it's like he is banged up for sure.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about it a little bit earlier when Ryan was on the show that the Bengals game, he wasn't at his best, but the Bengals did a good job of disrupting him as well. It's just like, it's one of those things where now he's got 2 more weeks of rest. Where is that ankle? I'm not sure where it is going to be, but if he is 80% of himself, which I think he should be at least, I mean, he's, to me, leaps and bounds, you know, ahead of a lot of other QBs in the league. I think Jalen Hurts is in that discussion. And if this game turns into a bit of a shootout, not even a huge shootout, but if it's 31-30 31 and they're kind of going down at the end of the game. Who are you going to pick? Patrick Mahomes kind of driving down with Travis Kelce, or Jalen Hurts when he has to make a big throw? I think this year we really haven't seen Jalen Hurts need to make that big play. What the Eagles try to do, they try to get out to those big leads and have the defense protect it and run the ball. And it's tough to do that with Patrick Mahomes, because you could see Patrick Mahomes jumping out to a 14 point lead early in the game, and Jalen Hurts is going to have to step up. And in the Super Bowl, the biggest names will always shine, and that's why I think Patrick Mahomes will.
Danny, you said it too. You said if it, with the over under at 51, I think you said it right. If the over hits, I mean, that favors.
If the Chiefs win, I think the over is going to hit. If the Eagles win, the under is going to hit, because it's going to be the Eagles just playing suffocating defense. It's going to be a very boring game, 21-10. The Eagles win it. If the Chiefs, I think if the Chiefs win, it's
that wasn't your prediction, was it?
No, that was not my prediction.
I'm hinting towards mine. Like I feel like
threw it out there very casually. I was just making sure that.
No. I think I've hinted towards my pick quite a bit. Especially in the last segment. I think Andrew can kind of back that up, even though I was playing a little devil's advocate. But I do think 80% of Patrick Mahomes is still the best quarterback in the NFL.
He's just crazy.
He's an alien.
On top, his dad did play for the Mets, so I'll just put that.
Had to throw that out there as well as the Mets fan on the crew here, but yeah.
I think the Chiefs' offense is just, you can't ever count them out of a game. Even if it is, you're getting late in the quarter, they're down by 10 with 5 minutes left in the game, they come back and win it. And they were down by 3 in last year against the Bills with 13 seconds left, and they go down, score a touchdown, and win it. They are never out of the game, no matter how much time is left in it. And I think that's a lot of credit to what Andy Reid has been able to do in unlocking Patrick Mahomes. Let's not forget that, yes, Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback, phenomenal talent. What Andy Reid has been able to do in unlocking that talent and getting weapons and the scheme around him has been so impressive. And I think that has really helped Mahomes out throughout his career.
Well, we talked about, the run game with the Eagles, relying on that when they're in the lead, especially late. But I think you guys mentioned in the last segment as well, the Eagles have, a really strong backfield in terms of running the football. They rely on it a lot, not just when they're in the lead late in the game. They're going to have to really establish that run. That's going to be a big key for Philly, establishing the run, because ultimately you're not going to win it with Jalen Hurts throwing on his own for the entire game. I mean, you're not going to.
We'll see. I don't know. I mean, maybe Jalen Hurts takes that next step. And, he's been a type of guy that people didn't think he'd be a starter. Yeah. Comes up, he's a starter. No one thought he could take the next step. He takes the next step. And you can go on and on. Maybe Jalen Hurts has that potential. I'm not sure if he does, but he's a guy that always proves people wrong. I think that's kind of what he alluded to throughout this entire week in availability, and I wouldn't be surprised if it happened again.
Well, that's the thing, though. I will say the reason I would say, why I said you're not going to rely on him solely, it's because you haven't seen it in the playoffs yet. You've seen it during the regular season.
He hasn't really needed
against teams that aren't at the level of any team. I mean, obviously the Chiefs, one of the best teams in the NFL, but even at the level of a playoff team, they really haven't, I think it was Trey Wingo on the show. Yes. We interviewed him yesterday, but it aired earlier today. He talked about who have the Eagles played? And I think he went down the list, and it was the Jaguar, a Jaguars team in week 2. And that's what we're looking at as one of the better teams. And obviously that says a lot. The Jaguars are a good team, but we're much better later in the year as they kind of figure things out. So that is a big concern as well. But, and I will say the one thing on the Chiefs side of the ball, defensively, that's going to be a big factor in this one as well.
I think this defense is better than people are giving them credit for.
Absolutely.
I think everyone is giving the flowers to the Eagles. And this defense, I think, won that Bengals game.
They were a little shaky at the beginning of the
year. They were, but I think they've came on.
Like I said in the last segment, the last 8 to 10 weeks or so, they've been great. Yeah. And they have a really good pass rush. I mean, between Chris Jones and Frank Clark, they're going to be able to get after the quarterback. I think both of these teams, you can include the Cowboys in there too, but they have 2 of the top 5 offensive lines in the NFL. If you look, all these playoff teams, they have great offensive lines. That's really where the game is won, the battle of the trenches. We talk about it so much, but I think it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a big factor in this one. Obviously, the offensive lineman who Danny gives a lot of love, being a former offensive lineman, correct? Yep. And through these media availabilities, it's actually been
back-to-back segments.
Back-to-back segments. It's been mentioned.
Oh, yes. Are you serious? Okay. Well, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to drag you through.
No. Give me my credit. I love hearing you talk about
I'm just saying the only thing is that I think Did somebody say that one of the players was taking videos of Danny just
Yeah,
interviewing all the offensive linemen?
So me, Danny, and Mike were at Chiefs Availability.
Because
That was on
that's
Wednesday, I think.
Yeah.
And basically, Danny was interviewing all the offensive
I'm just going down the line.
Basically going down the line. And then after, like, the other guys, either their backups or the starters that he's already interviewed, they were taking pictures of Danny interviewing, and they were like, look at this. Like, people are actually interviewing us.
That's hilarious.
It was great, too. And I was listening back to the audio last night, and they gave great answers, but you can definitely tell that no one has ever asked them questions because they're like trying to formulate their thoughts. It was really funny.
The biggest part of
Yes.
the game, which is so interesting. And they're going to get no love. If Patrick Mahomes stays upright in this game and he's going to win MVP and throws for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns, no one will give love to the Creed Humphreys of the world.
You don't hear about offensive linemen unless they mess up. Game that you can have as an offensive
like a
lineman
referee.
But
is
they
if
may
you
make
don't
$50
hear
million.
yes if you don't hear your name once
I'll
on
take
the broadcast
$50 million and not be talked about.
yeah if you don't hear your name once on a broadcast, you did a good job.
Hey, on the positive side, you walk around, nobody knows who you are for the most part. I mean, you're a giant human being, so people probably say, "Who are you?" But you know, and the only guy on the offensive line for either team that everybody knows is obviously Jason Kelce, and a lot of attention.
Lane Johnson's
I would say I meant more so for like a casual fan.
Yeah,
Somebody that's not.
My mom
know,
may know who Jason Kelce is. She's not going to know Lane Johnson.
Yes, like I think for the majority of people tuning into the Super Bowl, because so many people tune in, I would say most of them are probably only going to know Jason Kelce, maybe somebody else. But that just, obviously is a result of the Kelce brothers. And a lot of storylines in this Super Bowl. But I think what excites me the most is, first of all, it's a 1.5 point spread. It's a very close, and ultimately what I think a lot of these guests that we've had on, something that's been interesting, I think it's proving to that 1.5 point spread, is there's been a lot of flip flop. We've seen, we've heard a lot of people, ride with the Eagles, but we've also heard a lot of people ride with the Chiefs. It's really been pretty split. We've seen, Frank Caliendo joked with us saying he flip-flopped based on every interview he did, so it's been a toss-up. And I think for me personally, it's also been a toss-up. And it's been something that I've kind of gone back and forth with, and it creeps into my mind more and more of, are you really going to pick against Patrick Mahomes? And that's ultimately what a lot of people think and a lot of people come back to. So we have all 5 of us here, obviously, for the Super Bowl. I want to get everybody's picks. So we're going to have, Ryan and Mike right now are helping out in production. They're going to come on in a minute to do their picks. But I want to start with the 3 of us here. And Andrew, I'll give you the floor. You can start. Give me your Super Bowl prediction.
I think I've alluded to it all week, but I think the Chiefs are winning this game. The second the Chiefs won that game against the Bengals, I thought they would win this game. I think Patrick Mahomes will stay upright. I think he'll have a huge game. I could see a 304 touchdown type game. Travis Kelce, I think, is a lock for a touchdown or 2. And I think this Chiefs defense, I don't think a lot of people give them credit. I think they're going to get pressure on Jalen Hurts. I think Hurts is going to turn the ball over a few times. And at the end of the day, I think that the Chiefs are going to win this game, and they'll cover, obviously. I'm going to go score-wise. I think they're going to put up 35. I'm going to go 35-27. I think the Eagles still put up points, but I think less. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. Maybe 31-24, right in that range, though. I think
I need an exact number. We need you on the record. We need everybody on the record for that. We've been here.
Sam holding a gun to Andrew said, "Give me a score."
Well, here's the thing, though. We have no excuse. We've been here all week. I mean, if anybody is going to try and pick the game, other than obviously I would say the broadcasters calling the game, or other of them, everybody else that's here in the media, we should know what's going on. And the fact that we're still kind of flip-flopping, I think
I'm not flip-flopping. I'm just trying to score. I'll go 35-27 Chiefs win. Patrick Mahomes MVP.
I got it written down. So
and
there you go.
I think Patrick Mahomes got it.
True.
And
then
that's what I got.
And Chiefs. All right, Danny, let's hear it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Chiefs as well.
Okay.
I think it's a very easy choice in my mind. I just don't think the Eagles have really had any serious competition all year. They had the easiest schedule in the entire NFL. They had the easiest path to get here. They had to play the Giants, who started all the Giants fans out there, but should not have been in the playoff conversation.
Well, shouldn't have been in the playoffs.
Well,
shouldn't not a legitimate Super Bowl contender.
They won a lot of close games, and that happened.
And the draw against the Vikings is.
And then playing the Niners after Brock Purdy goes down, then the backup goes down, and then you got Brock Purdy back in who can't throw the football.
Excuses. Once again,
It's not
49.
excuses,
No, I'm
though.
kidding.
It's not excuses. It's why I'm giving my
I'm
reasoning.
just getting
Sam.
fired up. That's all,
Yeah.
man.
Gosh,
I know.
it's been
You
all
lost
week.
your
It's been
quarterback
all
at
week.
the third string. I get it.
And also, like, just to cut in, first of all, I got to give kudos
So
to
the
Danny.
Niners. So you're all the way saying Niners win that game with Brock Purdy.
I don't know if I'm saying the Niners
Okay.
win that
it's
game,
possible,
but I
Oh,
think it's
definitely
a different game.
and I got to give kudos to Danny at the possibility that his team was 1 week away from being in this, and we would have been able to interview all the Niners players.
Yeah,
I do
I mean,
feel for him
that's-
in that. Right?
It has been
That's heartbreaking.
painful. It has
Yeah,
been painful.
it's
I've been
heartbreaking.
looking forward to this for the last couple months.
Well,
not having the
especially for the
Niners.
Niners. Well, this is
And
just
Niners
really
are
beating
doing
you
good
while you're
throughout.
down, but also, matching up against the Chiefs a couple of years ago, and you're getting so close. So sorry, didn't want to.
It would be great. It would be great,
there,
honestly, if both teams could lose this game because I have anger towards both of them. But the last stat before the last stat before I give my score prediction because I'm still trying to kind of formulate it. Teams that played the 49ers the week after were 1-15 this year. The one team that won the week after was the Chiefs.
Okay.
I think that proves to me that the Chiefs are great. The Eagles are coming a week after playing the Niners. I think we moved to 1-16. Chiefs win it. I'm gonna go 38-31. Chiefs win.
Okay, 38-31 Chiefs is what you got, and I want to get the other guys on the show here. So can we get Ryan and Andrew?
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we'll
Ryan
do a
and
little
Mike.
swap here.
We'll do a swap. I'll stall here while we get it. Well, I got to get my pick still.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I got to get my pick.
Can we recap who they just picked?
Yeah, so I'm going right here. So, Danny, you went Chiefs, and you went 38-31, correct? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Andrew went Chiefs. He went 35-27. So this is how much I've been flip-flopping. Like, I hear these guys both go Chiefs, and I'm like,
So can I ask a question to help me with my answer? Danny made a great point earlier, so I'm going to ask, what is the over-under?
It's 51 points.
Flat?
51 points. Yeah. I mean, I could look it up, but that's what I saw earlier today.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, which one do you guys want to go first? Which, I mean, nobody's jumping in. I can tell you. You don't exactly
I'll
know
go
where
first.
you're going. Okay.
Hey, I'll break the mold here.
Okay.
Because the Philadelphia Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl.
Okay.
Miles Sanders is going to be the MVP of the Super Bowl.
Okay.
They're going to win 31-20.
Okay.
So you're saying it's they're going to nail it.
One flat. It's going to push.
Okay.
Miles Sanders is
I
going
like
to have
that
2
pick.
rushing touchdowns. Eagles are going to run it all over.
So we
Chiefs.
could we should have done MVP picks as well. I think
hey,
we might have to get Danny
Like, call to the
and
bullpen. Who's your
and Andrew
MVP?
back on afterwards. but
MVP. Mahomes.
They
Okay.
both have Mahomes.
Yeah,
Oh
the
my
Chiefs
God.
win. If the Chiefs win, Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Okay,
But
so I'll
you
write
guys-
that down too. So
Okay, Danny just said Kelsey now.
Danny
mix
is
it up.
okay. He's
Now, is
mixing
he
it up.
mixing it up to mix it up, or is he mixing it up because he thinks?
No, I'll go I'll put him down as Kelsey, and
So-
of course Ryan has what'd you say? Miles Sanders.
Miles Sanders gonna have 2 rushing touchdowns.
Miles Sanders. I said
You
it
know,
earlier. I said it earlier. His anytime touchdown, I think it's on the
you
betting
look,
side of things is I think it's a very good value because they do run
Yeah.
the football a lot.
So
especially in the red zone.
Yeah.
Mike.
I have my pick. I know I want to go Eagles. That's definite. I'm just trying to figure out the score. I'm gonna make Jalen Hurts the MVP. Like, just be basic, but just get the pick right. You know what I mean? I'm sure the viewers are falling asleep in my pick.
So I'll go. I'll put Mike. I'll put Eagles. I'll put MVP Jalen Hurts. We just need a score.
Okay, so we have to now make I have to now make my score for the game. I'm gonna go 20.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
I want to go 31-20.
It's a good score.
It's a great score. When I heard Brian say, I'm like,
I'm gonna go.
Sounds like what it's gonna happen.
I think it's a close game, but I think the Eagles win by a score definitely. Not like a 3 points. They're gonna win by a touchdown. I'll go 27-20, just because maybe I don't think they get the extra points.
27-20.
You're basically saying they're gonna put up 4 touchdowns and a field goal. I'll say they get 3 touchdowns and 2
exactly
field
what he's
goals. So that is what I'm gonna say. Jake Elliott. Talked to him a little bit
He's
yesterday.
MVP,
I'm gonna
Jake Elliott.
27-20 final score. Jake Elliott MVP for his 2 field goals.
I think we're all kind of pulling for whoever we talked to for MVP. I mean, I know you picked the Eagles.
I'm rooting for the
I
Chiefs
did
in
not
this
talk to Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
I'm picking him as my
No,
most
I'm
valuable
100% rooting for the Chiefs. I just don't think it's gonna play out the way I want.
Yeah.
I'm going.
So that's another interesting question. Rooting interest. I don't know. I know Danny said he didn't care. Andrew, I mean, who? Chiefs is Andrew.
So I might be the sole person rooting for the Eagles.
I'm not rooting for the Eagles.
I'm not. How?
I mean, Philadelphia. Like I'm dealing with that city. Just destruction, the pure destruction they're going to cause.
I think so. You know,
again.
I would like to see.
We already,
I do like Jalen Hurts a lot.
And part I do have to
Sirianni.
preface, I'm also a Patriots fan, so I mean, rooting for Philly is.
I mean, my team's in the AFC. You know, the Chiefs have been a tough team for the Steelers in years past. So I'll go Eagles. I'm not a Giants guy. I'm not a Cowboys guy. So
hey, can I say why also I'm rooting for the Chiefs? Because I don't want us to look back in 20 years and be like, Mahomes' career was wasted.
Because you rooted for the
no. I'm just saying, like, it would be egregious if Mahomes retired with one Super Bowl.
Yeah,
like, he is such a better talent than only I think
like
not
7 higher though. But I mean, you just mean like
it's really hard to get back there.
Yeah, you're right.
And
okay.
They're set up for long-term success, but you never know if you're getting back there. So this is a great opportunity. There's only been I think 7 quarterbacks who've ever won 2 Super Bowls. Mahomes is absolutely going to go down to the top 7 guy all time. And 1 Super Bowl would feel like Aaron Rodgers. It feels like he's left some on the table.
Yeah,
I don't want that to be Patrick Mahomes' career. So that's another reason I want him for the legacy and for everything.
I will say though that the career trajectory for Mahomes has not been a guy that's going to leave it on the table. That's gonna get to the playoffs and not show up, which is something that's happened.
I do want to say one thing.
Dak Prescott's a guy.
We are in communication with our producer at the Rosso Studios, Patrick Amaturo. He wants to give his pick, I think we should read his
huge
pick.
Shout out to him for all the help throughout the week.
Yeah,
he's done it. Pat has done an amazing job. His pick is Chiefs 28. Eagles 26. So he was going with the Chiefs. He will be
26.
I know why I did that. So he has a box number and that's his number 86.
Okay, so that was part of it. Yeah. Okay, I was gonna say, how do you get 26?
You go for 2, you don't get it. Things get weird.
I mean, that could happen. Things get weird in the Super Bowl.
These teams are aggressive as well.
It's a number. It could be the number.
Pat sees Mahomes at the 2-yard line trying to punch it in for 2.
Yeah, we need MVP. I mean, Pat can hear us, so let's get the MVP from Pat. He's going Chiefs.
Julia and Lou also helped out both went Chiefs as well.
Okay, so so that leans us towards Chiefs.
We have 2 Kelseys and 1 Mahomes, guys.
He goes Kelsey.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, when I was thinking of my MVP, I don't want to be generic, but basically, so I came into as soon as the matchup was set in the Super Bowl, I was Eagles. I was really? that was my default. I thought, obviously 1 through 53, we talked about it. The better team overall. It just feels like, when Philly is, at the top of the NFL, like they are this year. They've been that way for the entirety of the year. The only knock we've had on the Eagles is that they haven't really played anybody in the playoffs, and I think if that's your knock, that shows how good the team is, and that shows the talent. During the week, I was leaning more Chiefs based off the fact that it's Patrick Mahomes and you can't pick against, and it's a guy that I don't want to pick against, but I am going to. So I'm going to take the Eagles. I'm going to go 28-24. So I think it's going to be, somewhat, I guess not a super low scoring game, but, you can't hold Patrick Mahomes in that offense down too much. So I've got Eagles, and I got to go Jalen Hurts for MVP.
I think Hurts.
You know what? Actually, I think for wishful thinking, because I did ask a question to AJ Brown, I will say AJ Brown MVP. I don't think that's going to happen, but for wishful thinking, I'll
think
switch
it's
it
one
up,
of those things
and I'll say that
AJ Brown does so well, so will Hurts.
Yeah. So the way, if you go back when Julian Edelman won the Super Bowl or the MVP, he didn't catch a touchdown, so it helped neutralize. Typically, it would go to Brady, but because he just had a ton of yards, it helped him get the MVP. So that's where the Kelsey, I don't see how that's possible, because for him to have a monster game, Mahomes will have a monster game.
Yeah.
But it's happened before, so we'll see. But that's why I went with a runner, because obviously Jalen Hurts won't get those stats if Miles Sanders goes for 102 touchdowns.
Yeah. So I think a lot of us have been back and forth, and rightfully so. But Pat's coming in as our producer now, saying now he wants to change his MVP. Everybody's changing their MVP. We all have. We've all been kind of flip flopping, as you can see. But that's the nature of this game. It's essentially a toss up. We're super excited for it. So I just want to run down the picks just so we have them on record and everybody knows. So it's going to be Pat, our producer, with the Kansas City Chiefs, 28-26 MVP Travis Kelce. Mike went Eagles MVP Jalen Hurts, 27-20. Ryan went Eagles 31-20, MVP Miles Sanders. And then Danny and Andrew, who gave their picks a little while ago, 38-31. Danny has the Chiefs with MVP of Travis Kelce. 35-27. Andrew has the Chiefs with the MVP Mahomes. And finally, myself, 28-24. I have the Eagles, and the MVP is AJ Brown. And it looks like Pat is saying Blake Bell is his
Oh,
MVP.
okay. There we go.
So I guess we'll change that. But nevertheless, those
Actually,
are our
he
picks.
wants Chad Henne. We're gonna cut him off. He's at.
Yep.
I think he's done. I think
You're not
I'm
reading
leaving.
anymore, Pat.
I mean, I'm leaving him with Travis Kelce. He'll have Travis Kelce just because he said Chad Henne right at the end there. I'll leave him with Travis Kelce. But anyway, we are going to come back and give kind of our final impressions of Radio Row and what the week has been. Just an awesome opportunity. So we'll have that on the other side of the break. Stick around for more one-on-one.
Welcome back to One-on-One live from Radio Row. One last time before we check out with our live shows. We had Wednesday 3 hours. We had a 3-hour show yesterday, and now capping it off with our 3-hour show today on Friday. Super Bowl on Sunday. We already gave our picks, but now we just want to recap on the week and how our experience has been at Radio Row. And Ryan, I'll start with you. It's been amazing for me, but just what has been your takeaway?
Yeah, I mean, my takeaway is I'm incredibly honored to be here and represent Fordham and WFUV. And going into the week, wasn't really sure what to expect at all. I asked people who had been to Radio Row before, appreciate last year's group. They gave me some good advice, reached out to some alum, whatever, tried to gather what it would be like. And they did a great job of setting it up. But it's one of those things you really have to see it to believe it. Just the opportunity to have all these big time media companies in the world come together, really the only time all year, only time logistically it could ever happen to just, to my left, it's FanDuel, Pat McAfee, to my right, NFL Network. Then you got CBS, NBC, just have all these different conglomerates together, the guests just going from booth to booth. It's a great opportunity to get big time people that otherwise we probably wouldn't get to talk to, but just that experience overall is something that I'll remember this forever, 100%. Arizona, a great city, nice and warm out, unlike New York, although today I think is pretty nice out. But regardless, we're just really fortunate to be here. And this is an experience I can just guarantee you I will never forget.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it has been unreal being here. The amount of people that we've talked to, even guests that we didn't have on the show, just going up and talking to people, professional athletes. I mean, so many people are just walking by and you're going, oh my gosh, that's Deion Sanders. Oh my gosh, that's Joe Montana. Oh my gosh, that's Barry Sanders. There are just so many legends of the game walking around, just like right where we're sitting. It has been one of the most fun experiences of my entire life. So grateful to have this opportunity. And thank you to Fordham for giving us this opportunity to come out here, FUV. I felt like we've represented ourselves well. So it's been a very, very, it's just surreal being out here talking to all these people and doing what we want to do in the future already at 21, 22 years old.
Yeah, it's been truly remarkable. And I think it's exceeded any expectations you could have. And it's almost like too much stimulation at once. So many athletes, so many legends, so many sports media icons all around you in one room. You really can't have anything else like this. And 20 guests is the number we ended up having. That's, I think a lot more than we expected. Yeah. And a lot of big guests. All the guests were amazing. We had such a great experience having them on the show. But the fact that we were able to end the show with 20, or the 3 shows with 20 guests, is truly amazing. And I want to go one more question for each of you guys. You talk about the experience being here, but is there one memory you have, one favorite memory you had from these 9 hours of live shows we've done? Ryan, I'll go to you first.
Well, something I think that I'll look back on and think it was a really cool experience was getting to, ask Patrick Mahomes a question, but it's honestly something being in Arizona that wasn't even part of. It's funny because the first interview we got was with Papa, the voice of the 49ers. It was talking to him away from Radio Row in a more personalized setting and just hearing some of the stories he talked about, just casually, being in Moneyball, calling Barry Bonds' 04 season, talking about Nick Sakel, a Fordham guy, and just those experiences like that. I think it's just a conversation in general I'll never forget. Funny, it was the first one. We got a ton of big guests, everything like that, but that was one that really stood out to me.
Yeah, I think for me, it also, I have a few, so it's really hard to
I just thought of like 7 other things.
Yeah,
I haven't really thought of mine yet.
I think it comes off the air. Just running around, like I was going after so many people.
Danny was the 1-1 runner on this trip, getting guest after guest.
Going up, and even if they denied me, going up and just talking to people and being like, hey, my name is Danny, introduce myself. I'm from Fordham. Would you guys be able to come on my show? And even if they said no, just having that experience of talking to these professional athletes, talking to Ian Rappaport, getting him to come over on the show was unreal. It was a lot of fun doing that, and even getting denied, it sucks, but it's like, it's part of the experience. We're trying to get all these crazy guests. And I think I got a little big for my britches as soon as I got Rappaport, trying to get some other people, but it was a lot of fun. Just those small conversations, the 2-minute conversations, introducing myself. Wow, you're a college student that's here. Like, that's awesome. Happy for you. Wish I could come on, just unavailable today, sadly.
Yeah, it's so hard for me to just pick one. I think just the experience of being at the table and looking around and seeing different people. I don't know if it's one favorite moment, but I think every time we were at this table, something really cool happened. So the time here was definitely my favorite. I think that's, for me, even cooler than some of those press conferences that we were able to go to and all the other great things we were able to do. But just being at this table, being able to host some shows and get some great guests, that was all part of my favorite moments of the trip. I do want to welcome in now Sam Davis and Andrew.
I just want to say one last thing really quick, just like also the off-script nature, like 2 guests at the same time. What do you do? Just those kind of experiences where you have to adapt on the fly. You're looking someone up while interviewing them, to confirm things and all that different area. It's good experience for all of us, and it's something that, because it came together so quickly, I think it's an important situation to deal with. That's how the real world is going to work, but I felt like we did a very good job of never really flustering completely and holding down the ship.
And credit to you guys. A lot of times we had to scramble to get hosts at the right time, and I think we did a great job of being able to deal with the adversity and do a great job hosting these shows as we welcome in Sam Davis and Andrew Galata.
Here we are. Well, I'm off the screen.
Guys, appreciate you joining back.
Hopping on one last time.
Hopping on one last time, and I was talking to Ryan. I was talking to Danny. Just takeaways, Andrew. I'll start with you. Takeaways from the trip.
What an awesome week. I mean, we said when we first came on air that the whole NFL is here and the stars are out, and that's exactly the case. I think we've seen every big name possible in the NFL through Radio Row or the availability of the Chiefs and Eagles. I mean, what type of experience you can get at 21? I know WFUV has granted us some amazing experience. I know you guys can speak on that as well. You know, don't have time to even go through everything we've been able to do. But this event and the availability that we got at the Chiefs and Eagles practice, where you could just go up to any, player that is going to, half of them are going to be Super Bowl champions. Some of them already are Super Bowl champions. And to walk up to them and ask them, 3 questions, 2 questions, for me, some of them interviewing them for a full 5-6 minutes and just seeing their personalities, that's a once in a lifetime experience for a 21-year-old. I mean, for that experience, I can't thank WFUV enough. I mean, I feel like us 5 really put together some really good shows as well. All these guests that came on from the Madness. I know you guys were talking a little earlier when Frank Caliendo was coming on. We had another guest coming on. It's just unspeakable the amount of experience we got and all the memories we created to interview Ian Rappaport and ask him about like a Saints rumor. I mean, come on, as a Saints fan, you can't ask anything else throughout this week.
Yeah, Andrew, that's a great point. I definitely reflect all that. I think for me, just incredibly grateful and incredibly thankful for WFUV for the reason that we're here. And I love that we wore the shirts on the final day, to show our pride in the station. And that's something that I've talked about in the past. Me and Andrew just a few minutes ago, we're talking about the Vince Scully show, something that we were also a part of. Another feeling of just really just proud of WFUV and proud of, the standard that we, strive to hold up. And I think heading into this week, and being here and really doing the most that we can and getting the most guests that we can and really working hard to just make this experience, the greatest for, obviously the product, but also just for us personally. And I think that's a huge part of it as well. We've had the opportunity to enjoy Phoenix and enjoy some warm weather and enjoy, a week of, being able to, the media party was a really cool opportunity. And we're going to go try In-N-Out because we're from New York and we don't get, little things like that is also really cool. And then you add in, of course, what it's been like being at Radio Row, seeing just about everyone you could ever see. I swear, I couldn't think of a person that wasn't here. It seems like just about everybody was here, which says a lot about the NFL, says a lot about the Super Bowl and the stage that we're on here with WFUV. And for me personally, just super pumped and super happy with the product and what we were able to churn out over the course of 3 days, the people we were able to interview, the guests we were able to get, because a lot goes on behind the scenes as well. If you're not interviewing someone for a segment, still, running and going, finding a guest, which Danny did a great job of, and we all did throughout the week, or producing or making sure everything's working. A lot goes into it. A lot went into these shows, and I'm really proud of us putting in all that work and all that effort, from waking up at 7 a.m. to, going to Eagles availability at 4 p.m., 5 p.m. That's a full day and making the most of it. I'm super proud of.
So I'm going to end this to be the last question. I asked the same question to Ryan. Danny, one memory or favorite memory you had at your time here? Sam, you can go first.
Favorite memory, man, that's tough. Did these guys take a while? I mean, it's.
I don't know if Andrew's got one.
Tough. It's really tough.
I mean
for me,
for you,
Rappaport was huge.
So
asking Andy Reid a question.
Mine wasn't really a moment. It was just hosting instead of maybe the press conferences. Just being at the table, just being able to see everyone coming around. That was mine. I'm not sure if you have a more vague moment like that or something.
I mean, obviously, I think yesterday with all the guests that we were able to get was a really awesome experience, and the various interviews, really through the entire landscape of the media industry. We were able to cover someone in each individual kind of market, which I think has been really huge as well. And I think personally, I think, and not to sound too cliche, but you were this group of 5 are the guys that I wanted to be on this trip with, and there's a lot to be said about, the chemistry all of us have on air, and the fact that, we all like each other and get along really well. And that shows itself on the air. And that's something that we have all been a part of WFUV for 4 years now. We've all kind of gone through this journey together through COVID and through everything at Fordham, to lead us to this point. And I think that ultimately was some of the better moments. No matter who, we saw some amazing names, got to interview some amazing names, got to be in this presence here for Super Bowl week and the excitement surrounding that. But having the 5 of us together to do that, I think it sounds cliche, but I think it's true. And
I think it's the biggest thing. I mean, at the end of the day, Ian Rappaport's probably not going to remember meeting us or Frank Caliendo, but we're going to remember those moments, how we were, together doing these shows, getting these interviews. And that's the biggest thing. I mean, that's what WFUV is all about, and the opportunities that we were able to give and kind of practice our craft and also be able to do it together. I mean, this whole show, not even just the 5 of us, Pat back in the studio, Lou yesterday in the studio as well, Bobby Chaffardini for giving us this opportunity. It's such a team effort that, that's what I look back on the most. Obviously, you're going to look at the big guests and maybe the questions you ask and the opportunities, but it's also those things as well. Those are the memories you're going to think of too.
Yeah, so many great memories, and it's hard to really just capsulate into a couple questions, but I think we did a really good job. And, the show was awesome, and I'm really happy we were able to do, a pretty good job with the 9 hours we had on air. There will be a best of show that will premiere on YouTube at 11 p.m. tomorrow. It'll also be
if you're not tuning into that, then
FM
you got
tomorrow.
because that's going to be a great show.
So
that's going to be a great show.
That is going to be a great show. So we're going to have a lot of fun editing into that tonight, and then we'll be out tomorrow, hopefully. But that will do it from our coverage from Radio Row in Phoenix, Arizona. Once again, be sure to check out that Best Of show airing tomorrow, February 11th at 11 p.m. on YouTube and 90.7 FM. A big thank you to all 20 guests that came on our time. A huge also thank you Lando, Julio Moss, Patrick Amatero for their help in producing in New York. That was a big help for myself, Andrew Galata, Sam Davis, Ryan Greger, and Danny Scott. Thank you so much. 101 is a production of WFUV Sports.